Ladies and gentlemen, it has been quite some time. It's been, I think, since I was I was in chapter 9 of Xenoblade 1, the last time I spoke to
Wow.
the good brother. So it's been several months. This has been not only a long time coming, but one of the conversations I've been looking forward to having the most, especially since finishing that journey and with the things that have taken place after. The latest edition of the Peak Fiction podcast, co-hosted by the good brother AJ Alexander. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Like you said, it's been a long time coming. This feels like maybe the biggest wait we've had between
Yeah.
talks. And it's crazy because we both experienced so much in that time. We've experienced enough for like two or
Mm-hmm.
three podcasts, I think. Um,
100%.
so so I've been itching. I've been itching. But aside from that, I'm doing pretty well. Um, the Blue Jays are ahead in the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
United's doing well. Knock on wood.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, knock on wood.
that could
That's
change
right.
anytime, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm experiencing lots of peak fiction as per usual. So I'm doing great.
Mm-hmm. Yo, I mean, we're recording this on the 31st, so who knows? The Blue Jays may close it out tonight, and we'll see. How crazy would that be, man? Goodness
Yeah, either that or
gracious.
they collapse. So, but either way,
Or they collapse. Either way. That's right. That's right. But to start things off here today, I wanted to pose a question to you. One that I'm looking forward to getting your answer for because I think it's going to tie into the Xenoblade trilogy and in our conversation that we're about to have in regards to that. And that is, AJ, what is your role in this world?
my role in this world.
Yes.
Uh, wow, what a question. Um, I luckily I kind of have a built-in answer for that because I kind of talk about this once in a while. My role
Hmm.
generally um, is kind of how I feel. This might be a deep cut for some people listening if they've not watched Showa Roku Rakugo Shinju, but I
Greatness.
like to think of my role as Yotaro's role in Rakugo in the series of Rakugo, which is that he when he reaches the pinnacle of his craft and when he has clear idea of exactly the type of person he wants to be, exactly what he wants to do with his craft. Um, he basically concludes that his job is to kind of be a conduit between stories and uh, stories and readers or stories and audiences, and I guess that's how I view myself. I like my content to be obviously I have myself in it, but I like it to be a kind of a conduit to help people hopefully gain greater appreciation for stories. And if they're more entertained, if they get another, maybe if they're able to think of the given story in a different way, a new and different way, um, anything like that, then I feel like I've done my job. If they enjoy it more in one way or another, if they just vicariously experience it, if I bring up a new point, if they get more emotional or whatever, that's how I feel. Uh, that's how I feel. That's what I feel my role is to try to be a gateway for enjoying stories in general. If I'm being a little bit having a tiny bit of an ego, maybe more than
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm.
That's my goal. That's
Mm-hmm.
my goal.
Oh man,
I'm
that's
curious
a
what yours is.
beautiful answer.
What you think yours is as well.
Ah, dude, that number one, that was a very beautiful answer, and I'll definitely talk about that here whenever we get into the Xenoblade trilogy discussion. Um, I have to thank you, dude. Like, I held off because we had a little bit of a conversation before this, but I really wanted to get this in not only in podcast form but as like a public thank you because I've thanked you like 100 times in private, but and in every video I've made for the Xeno franchise since. But I really have to thank you, dude, because Similar to how I felt post catching up to One Piece when I was a kid, or I should say a youngling, not necessarily a kid, but a youngling, to when I caught up to Trails, I was always super grateful to the individuals that got me into those particular series because of what they did in that moment in time. And I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart, both you and a good buddy of mine named Alrightio Reacts, who has been trying to get me to play Xenoblade since I entered this community in like 2013. So the both of you, I have to thank y'all so much because this Xeno experience from Xenogears that I played directly after Cold Steel 4, just trying to find something to fill the hole, and then it created a brand new hole, and then I played it again, and then I played Xenosaga 1, and then dropping off of Xenosaga 2 before I had an opportunity to really get into it for a couple years, and then to get as not just invested but swallowed whole by Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and to where I am right now. I just have to thank you from the bottom of my heart for in a random stream talking about, I don't remember if it was Shulk or if it was Xenoblade in your favorite pieces of fiction stream. It was one of those two, but it moved me to my core. I got on the game, and I'm here today as that fighting as one of my favorite things I have ever experienced in that franchise. So I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart, man. Seriously, thank you.
No, my pleasure, man. And honestly, one, it's so great to hear you say that. I think you can kind of see me in real time freak out when during that last podcast where you told me that you had started it, that you were already 9 chapters deep into it. You can kind of in real time see me lose my mind because I'm like, it's finally happening. Because Xenoblade, especially the first game, but the series in general has so much for so many people. The first game is my favorite game to experience vicariously through anyone. Every year I try to find a new player, a streamer, let's player, whatever, for Xenoblade because it's just that type of story. I always think of Attack on Titan as the best anime to watch someone react to because of the plotting and the characters and the drama and all that. That's what Xenoblade is for me in video game form. But even on top of that, it is just so tailor-made for people like me and specifically people like you. We have so much overlap in what we appreciate and value in stories. And so I'm just like, man, from the minute I knew you more than just a cool guy on Twitter, the minute I knew a little bit about you, I'm like, this guy's going to love this series. This guy needs to play this series. And I'm so glad it finally happened, and I'm so glad you loved it as much as you did. And it was it was so cool to see you go through it, sharing your thoughts on Twitter. You did some videos too, and just how much the community embraced you as well. I was kind of on the outside looking in on that because I'm not super deep in the Xenoblade fandom, but the seeing that happen and seeing how many people were so invested in your journey, I'm like, man, this is the beautiful thing about Xenoblade and video games and just fiction in general. And I was so glad that it was all celebrating your playthrough because your approach to stories is the type of thing that deserves that attention. So just in general, on a personal standpoint, I was really glad for you, and I was glad selfishly to finally have you experience such a special series. But just in general, it was just a really lovely thing to see. And I can't wait to talk about it because there is so much to love and discuss about the series.
Yeah, man. I'm so glad you brought up the community aspect of it because that's still the part that sort of floored me the most. I wasn't expecting it, one of those things where I remember whenever I used to be in high school, bothering this. I always shot her out, the girl in front of the class, because she was the one that the only person I knew that was in Hitman Reborn and One Piece. And so when those chapters dropped, she was like my conduit to be like, hey man, this stuff is peak. The stuff happening right now is incredible. And that later flourished into a YouTube channel, and obviously finding the community here, and being able to not only share the journey, but also have those things become conversations, have those things become community experiences, for me was really what made that entire thing so special, because that's the reason why I love One Piece so much. One Piece as a story is tailor-made for me, for sure. But I feel like without the community experience, it wouldn't be in the position that it is in my heart, which is in like one of those like Mount Rushmore caliber, never gonna be topped type of thing, because it's the community aspect of it. I've met so many people thanks to this wonderful series that I was able to share those experiences with, and I feel the same way now about Xenoblade. Thanks to that journey and that experience, I was able to meet so many people that I never would have previously. And I think that also goes with the themes of the entire trilogy, and honestly the whole series as a whole, in regards to connections and building your own future. But starting off with Xenoblade 1, because now that I can look back on it with context, as well as with just a huge smile on my face for the journey that it was, to finish off a conversation from last time, nothing could have prepared me for the second half of that game, bro.
Yeah.
I always say, when I start off the Xeno series with Xenogears, it was tough for me to consider that another game in the franchise could reach those highs again on a personal level, just for me, in terms of, because that game spoke to me so much, but it spoke to me a lot from a mental standpoint. It made me think about a lot of stuff that I'd never really thought about before, especially within that, looking at it through a certain lens, with how referential that game is. And so I remember going through Xenosaga 1, and I love Xenosaga 1, but it didn't impact me as much as Xenogears. And so when I got to Xenoblade, and I was already really enjoying it, but once Chapter 9 hit, I was like, oh, this is what I love from Xenogears. And then the rest of the game was that times 12. And I was like, dude, it's just nonstop. Banger, a twist after twist. You were just talking about it being a wonderful game to watch reactions to. I could see that tenfold. Now I want to watch my own reactions to Xenoblade, because you're so right. It feels like it's literally from the beginning of the game, but especially from chapter 9 onwards, it just feels like every chapter ending is like a great TV show that always ends on a cliffhanger. It's like it answers something but leaves you wanting more, and it's just so incredibly wonderful. And I remember I messaged you whenever I reached, I believe it was chapter 12, when they get to the beach, and I was like, dude, I think this is an all-timer. Like, I hadn't even gotten to like my favorite stuff in the game yet. I was like, no, this is like really, really hitting right now. And then everything that followed after, falling in love even more with the characters, more of the reveals. But I'll never forget how I felt reaching the end, because that's what I wanted. The whole to be filled from Xenogears was that type of Xeno-esque stuff. When you start thinking about, things that have to do with the world beyond yourself, the questions that are posed there, really hitting you in the mind. That's something that I loved so much from Xenogears, and when I got it here with Xenoblade, in the way that I got it, because it was like the perfect combination of, this is one of the most hyped things ever. This is one of the coolest final areas to a game that I can remember, especially at that time. And then to have so many of those things that game is trying to say there at the end, at the forefront, I was in awe. I was in awe. I couldn't believe, like you just said, that it taken me so long. I feel like I should have been with this for many, many years, but it was the perfect time. And the second half of that game, like, propelled me into the journey beyond, where I was like, man, I'm locked in forever. You know, I was so locked in. The day I finished Xenoblade 1, I finished it in the morning, and I started playing Xenoblade 2 at night. That's how locked in I was for the thing. I recorded my video. I while it was uploading, I started playing Xenoblade 2. And so it was that kind of experience, and I'll always cherish it because it forever locked me in. I sort of look at the Xenoblade trilogy the same way I do Bleach, where Xenoblade 1 for me is like Soul Society, where that locked me in, where I was like, oh my god, like I really, really rock with this. Xenoblade 2 is like the Rancor saga for me, and Xenoblade 3 is like the culmination of all those ideas coming together with Thousand Year Blood War. And so I just loved that experience so much. Like I was telling you in the original podcast, I was just looking for a globe-trotting adventure like Dragon Quest 3. And what I was treated to was a game that really made me not only just examine myself, but examine like my tastes, examine what it is that I'm truly trying. There's so many things. It not only is it a wonderful game, it's just genuinely a great piece of art, man. I loved that game so much, and so I pass it over to you as someone whom I know not only loves that game, but like I said, was the one that got me into it. Talk to me about Xenoblade 1 and your experience with it, because now I get to have the context behind that, as well as anything else that you'd like to add on for the Xenoblade greatness.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but like my experience with video games was pretty much early childhood or childhood in general, Nintendo. It was all Nintendo. It was all and like I mean first party Nintendo, because Xenoblade's, and you know, it originally came out on the Wii, but like no JRPGs outside of Pokemon and Paper Mario, if you consider that one. I was just obsessed with Mario platformers, Paper Mario, Super Smash Brothers, Pokemon, first party Nintendo, a bit of Sonic in there, Animal Crossing. And that was me. And then I got into I got into high school. And around high school, that was the COD era, you know. I played tons of Call of Duty. I did that so many, an unhealthy amount of hours, and that was a big part of my life. And it was a degenerate part of my life, but I feel like, you know, everyone needs a little bit of that. Right. But I never really got into Paper Mario. I always cite as the game that got me to properly appreciate stories, where I first started exploring worlds. You know, I first started valuing NPC dialogue in video games, that sort of thing. But I didn't really immerse myself. And then when I got to university, my friend forever changed my life by introducing me to JRPGs. He's just like, honestly, I think it could be your thing. And I said, okay, well, sure, why not? I mean, we were rooming together for the first time. We had lots of spare time because I would slack off from studying a lot, and so would he. And so actually, let me back up a second. What would happen is in our dorm room, we had one pretty big dorm room, but still cramped because there were 3 of us in it. There were just 3 of us in this big rectangle, and we had a TV in the middle that I still actually own. And my friend who had already been deep into JRPGs for ages, was playing Final Fantasy VIII for the first time. And I would just watch him. Play. I didn't really know what was going on, but I loved the music. I loved the art. I loved seeing him go from these beautiful still life painted background art screens. And I'm just like, this is kind of cool. And then that's when he introduced me to JRPGs. And I started with Final Fantasy VI. Then I played Final Fantasy IV. Then I played Chrono Trigger. Those were my first 3. And from then on, he's just like, okay, go. I know, yeah, amazing starting point. I kind of screwed my standards a bit, but there's so much greatness out there. So, and then after that, he's just like, okay, fly, leave the nest, pick whatever you want to pick. And so I don't even know how I heard about it, but Xenoblade was my choice, I guess. And I guess what I took away from it more than anything was all the stuff you said is so incredibly true and so it resonates so much with me. But more than anything, it is such a video game.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, I think about. By the way, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is so in the vein of Xenoblade. That is a Xenoblade
100%.
game to me.
Yeah.
This world-spanning epic adventure, the hefty themes, etc. I won't get into it, but like I say this because I think of Rebirth and I think of so many things, but among them, I take away the themes and the nuances of fate and the way it comments upon stories and legacy and all that sort of thing. I think about Final Fantasy XIV. I think of these hefty ideas that I won't mention because you'll get to that someday. I think of Final Fantasy IX, and I think about these incredibly emotional ideas about identity and connection and one's place in the world. In Xenoblade, it's one of the rare games that's experiential for me, in that my biggest thing from it is playing it. Like, my biggest draw to it is actually just remembering the experience and re-experiencing the experience of being in the story. Xenoblade to me is a bunch of fleeting moments and set pieces, and they are all, I want to say surface level, but not really surface level. It's all experiential. I think of Xenoblade and why I love it, and I don't think about the way it comments upon the nature of godhood and a world without gods, which is basically the thematic crux at the end. I think of Shulk. By the way, one of the greatest voice performances ever, Adam Howden as Shulk. Shulk screaming, "I'll kill you," to Metalface in the intro, or Dunban. I'm getting chills literally talking about this. Dunban on Prison Island, going, "Fiora, you're still alive." I remember the first time I saw Gower Plains, the first time I saw the waterfall in Machna Forest across that huge bridge, the first time I heard the beautiful Valak Mountain theme, the first time I saw that beautiful beach on the Fallen Arm, the first time I had that incredible twist with Dixon and Shulk and Egil about to completely just bridge the gap, and there was this generational trauma was about to be healed right there, and then it was interrupted in the most brutal way. And I think of Callian and his sacrifice and how Melia ended up being the hope of her people. And the main idea I take away out of everything is how just an admiration for Shulk and how much he was able to mature from single-minded revenge into this greater understanding of the world around him and the place he and his loved ones deserve to live in. That's the closest thing to a theme that I think of when it comes to Xenoblade, because to me, just every bit of it is every bit of being within the game, being immersed in it, is what matters most to me, more than anything.
I love that.
Which is such a cool contrast, because I'm sure you feel that way too, just as I appreciate the themes too. But I love how a big draw for you was, Takahashi and the connections to Xenogears and Xenosaga and all that. That wasn't even on my mind the first time I played this. And yet it's one of the most important works ever, because it really showed to me, one of my favorite things about video games is being immersed in the world and just losing yourself in it. And the hours just drift away as you explore these worlds and look at the environments and soak it all in. And I think Xenoblade and Paper Mario were the two games that really showed me that. The music, one of the greatest OSTs of all time, as is the case with all three. I love the gameplay. The gameplay it's so much fun. To me, it's like it's the perfect balance of everything. The scenes, the set pieces, which is crazy given they use the software of the Wii. Some of the stuff they were able to do,
Seriously.
like the Dunban versus there's so much out there versus Mumcar. It's just so epic and so grand. And the way I sell it, people sometimes ask me, should I get into Xenoblade? And sometimes they're in One Piece streams, and I just go, this is for all three, but I just go, listen, if you've ever wanted to, and I know there are One Piece video games, but I don't know anything about them, but I'm like, if you have ever wanted to play One Piece in a story, maybe the approach to humor or like the approach to character writing is a little bit different, but the broad strokes, if you want One Piece in a video game, that is pick one of the 3 Xenoblade games, you've got 100%. It right there.
100%.
This epic journey, world spanning, that slowly but surely gets larger than life but stays intimate, about connections between these lovable characters, just the most imaginative worlds ever. That's Xenoblade, and it's just magical. It's just magical to me. The first game is my favorite, but I have so much to say about the other 2 as well, and I actually just re-experienced 2 because of your playthrough. It got me the itch to do it again, and I'm currently re-experiencing 3 with my mom, actually.
Oh wow!
Who's seeing the story for the first time. Yeah.
Nice.
She loves seeing video game stories I like a lot, or that I love.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm showing her Xenoblade 3. So it's really cool to revisit. So yeah, anyway, that was a big ramble, but I guess that's what it is to me. It's just the magic of storytelling, the magic of video games, and like I said, it's my favorite game to watch people react to. Mm-hmm. And you combine that with the community aspect of your playthrough, I just think it's the perfect game to show what it means to share your experiences with like-minded, passionate people who have similar tastes.
Definitely. Dude, that was beautiful. And yo, I can't even imagine how incredible, especially Xenoblade 3, must be with just any family member, but your mother? Dude, that is incredible, man. Definitely let me know how that experience goes, because I came out of Xenoblade 3. I guess we could talk. You know what? Let's talk about Xenoblade 3. I came out of Xenoblade 3's entire thing valuing life so much, specifically the minutia of everyday life, the things that we take for granted. I always my best comparison point is there's a One Piece chapter titled "What a Wonderful World." It's in the middle of the Reverie stretch when Shirahoshi finally gets an opportunity to see what the sun looks like in first time, and I remember when we were reading that chapter on a weekly basis, I kept bringing up the fact that this is extremely beautiful to me because we take that for granted. The readers take that for granted. And I feel like Xenoblade 3 is that. Xenoblade 3's has so many moments. It might even have my favorite moment in or at least the moment that I haven't been able to stop thinking about the most rent-free moment that I've experienced in recent memory from anything, which it takes place in chapter 5, and it's in the maternity ward. But it has to do with the idea of life, with the things that individuals take for granted each and every single day. And there's so many things I love about Xenoblade 3. I love the way that it's able to tie itself back into the beginning with every single element of itself, from the way that the party is structured, the main protagonist being named Noah, which and then with the thematical elements that come in later that truly showcase why that is to be the case, right? An individual ushering in this brand new world, this era, right. And he has 2 of each race that are just going to create the future the same way Noah did in the Bible. All that stuff is super cool to me. But I think at the end of the day, my biggest takeaway from Xenoblade 3 was that idea that life is precious, and that idea is so prevalent within not just Mio, which is like the personification of that, but between Noah and Mio's relationship and their connection, and how that allows for miracles to be born. The living life and believing that something can happen in the future, a future that is unknown to everyone, and that a miracle can occur when even something feels as impossible as it does, the way that it does in this game with Mio's life being held in the balance in each and every single chapter. So I love the game for its incredible gameplay. I love the game for its world, its soundtrack. I don't know how it didn't win that year. If I would have been there, I would have created multiple accounts to make sure it won. But its soundtrack is incredible. Its DLC is one of my favorite DLCs ever. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about that. It actually changed, and I'll talk about this whenever we get to 2. But it actually fundamentally changed the way that I think, especially after Chapter 5. I gained so much gratitude for the life that I've been given. From the moment that you're born until the day that you die. You only have so much time. And Xenoblade 3 is all about that. And it's at the forefront of everything that happens in the game. And I haven't been able to... I literally every single day after completing that game, I think back to that scene in the maternity ward, and it makes me, number one, not only want to build connections with others and continue to build connections with individuals that I've already have connections with, but it genuinely has made me want to pass those things on to other individuals, pass those things on to other people. So that all of us, as difficult as things can be at times, all of us can look at those things, the things that we normally, myself being the biggest one, the things that we take for granted, time, the food the breakfast that we eat in the morning, the sun that's outside, even things that normally people complain about, like going to work or all the stuff that you could possibly think about complaining about, all of that has some sort of essence of beauty to it when you connect it to the fact that you and I are present in this moment and alive. And at one point in time, that may no longer be the case. So definitely take advantage of it while you still have it. And that being at the main crux of Xenoblade 3 and about the future that is unknown to you really resonates with me on a personal level because of what I was going through at that time, which is, I failed in getting what I was working towards the entire summer, actually the entire year, in getting my book published at the time. I talked about this in the Twitter thread, but it really, really hurt, and because I'd been working for it for so long, and I thought this would be the one. And so when it didn't happen, not only was I heartbroken, but I thought I'd be strong enough to be like, no, I can get back up and do it. I needed this game to pick me back up and remind me of the beauties of life. And not only did I come out of it with that and truly believing in the future that only we as a collective humanity can redeem, but it also made me realize that miracles can only be born when you believe. Because each and every single day is going to be different, and you never know what's going to be on the other side. And so, I love this game so much. It is, Xenoblade 3 is like right on, and I mean right under 2, as my favorite in the franchise. But the only reason not is I'll talk about it here in a second. But I love this game so much because it fundamentally changed. I'm not the same person that I was pre Xenoblade 3 as I was post Xenoblade 3. And I think anytime that a game or anything is able to do that, it's a really special experience. But I want to get some more insight into your current Xenoblade 3 playthrough, man. Of course, on your first Xenoblade 3 playthrough, how did you feel about it? And how are things matching up with this current playthrough for Xenoblade 3?
Well, first of all, I love that it did all that for you. That's incredibly beautiful, and it's if you're gonna have a game to play after experiencing that sort of hurdle or stumbling point in your life, this is right up there as one of the best you could possibly ask for. It is what an accompaniment to that sort of experience. So I'm so glad it was in your life. Like it almost feels kind of spooky how well that lined up.
Seriously.
So that's beautiful. But my experience with 3 was it was actually kind of weird because 3 came out pretty soon after I started streaming, or it overlapped with around the same time I started streaming. And as a fan of the series, I'm just like, well, might as well try to stream it. Like this could be cool. So I streamed. The thing is, I have a weekly stream every week. Every Monday I do a stream. Sometimes I do it twice a week, but every Monday that's what I do. And at the time I was doing that with Ace Attorney. So I was adding Xenoblade 3 on as well, but because it wasn't the current game, I would just kind of have to fit it in wherever I could, which would mean there would be 2 or 3 weeks before I would be able to, like, 2 or 3 week gap in between streams. And that wasn't ideal for this game because I think the gameplay is definitely something that is easy to forget. Like there's lots of little details that if I play a big session for 5-6 hours, then don't play again for another 3 weeks. It's like I forget completely everything about what I'm supposed to do, and then I spend time getting back up to speed, but it's hard to pay attention to the story while I'm doing that. So, like, it was a very fractured experience for the first couple of chapters, and ultimately I just said to people in my stream, like, I don't think I want to finish this on stream. For my own personal enjoyment, for the sake of giving the game as much of a chance to connect with it as possible, I think I'm going to do the rest off stream. And people understood. So that winter, I distinctly remember around the Christmas, New Year's time, and then going into early January, I finished Xenoblade 3, and I enjoyed it way more when I wasn't worrying about fitting it into a stream schedule. And I immediately found myself being able to immerse myself more. I could play, and then I could play the next day. It was great. And around that point in the story, I think it was around chapter 3 where I picked up after streaming the first bit. I just thought it was all around a really, really beautiful story covering lots of amazing ideas and just executing them in a really brilliant way. The way the cast interact with each other, the main 6, and then, of course, the 2 Nopons, and then the sort of revolving door of characters around them and how they bounce off of one another and how that triggers, Tion's backstory, the mysteries about Uni, Lands, and his extreme survivor's guilt with Jonah, and all that stuff. The way it does that is really, really exceptional. But up to a certain point, I was just like, yeah, this is a very good game, and I'm really enjoying myself. And there wasn't a but attached to that, but they were just like, yeah, that's it. Like, it's a really good game. Then I hit I think the end of chapter 5 into chapter 6 with the big twist, where you understand who N is and the exact circumstances of his psychology, and the ideas of the endless now really come to the fore. Man, I did not believe the game was always very pathos driven, and I got teary-eyed a few times, but that sequence had me bawling, man. It connected so much with me. Incredible. Mio's my Noah while she's in prison, not knowing where that's coming from, but like it makes sense even without knowing where it's coming from, right? You're just like, oh my god. One of the best executions of a twist I've ever seen in a game. That whole sequence right there solidified N as an all-time video game antagonist for me. and my favorite character in the game. Like that did so much so quickly, and I went, holy! I think this is actually just means a lot more to me than I thought it did. And then you ride that out until the conclusion, and that beautiful ending with the world separating, this incredibly melancholic, bittersweet ending, and then the the fragments of hope for meeting again at the end of it. Just exceptionally beautiful. And to what you were saying about the sanctity of life, this game and Expedition 33 are very much cut from the same cloth, I think. In terms of the way, especially the first half or so, the limited lifespan and the sanctity of life and all that stuff. But to your point, that coalesces so beautifully with the idea of the endless now, and in spite of whatever your life holds for you, being able to persist and not choose the easy way out, or not choose to give in to fear, and stay true to yourself, stay true to your connections, and don't let that be overpowered by fear in the way that N does. That's why the dynamic between Noah and N, them being two sides of the same coin, a bad end and our true end, is so important, and it just says so much through that. And yeah, by the end of it, it was a game that entered my favorites, that I really liked. That's been on my top 100 this past year. How I do the rankings every year. But lately, I've been like, maybe it's even higher than I thought. So that's why I decided, like, my mom and I, for a few hours every week, I show her something from my favorites. We've gone through Jujutsu Kaisen up to the end of the second season. I've showed her Attack on Titan. I've showed her, and then we ran out of anime, and then I just go, what about, like, on YouTube you can just search up pure video game stories, all the gameplay cut out. So that's what we do. I showed her Remake and Rebirth. I showed her Final Fantasy 14, Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 10, The Last of Us, what did we do? Expedition 33, and now this. Her favorite, by the way, is 14, and then Rebirth is a very close second.
Goodness. That's a selling point right there from Mama AJ.
I know. I got to sneak it in. But she's so yeah, we're currently going through this. I think we're just started chapter 4, is where we are. And I can't wait for the most impactful moments to hit, but it's been beautiful to go through it again and notice all those little details that, like you said, really sell the beauty of life, those little moments. Specifically, I really liked him before. Actually, these two in general. Like I said, N was my favorite character. I think Uni was probably my second. I really love Uni. And then it was just like kind of a mix of a bunch of them because they're all great. But this time around, I'm really loving, like I said, I already love them, but Lance and Tyon, I'm connecting with a lot more than I was before. I think they're really great. And just the little moments are hitting more when you understand the full context, when you understand what Mobius is, when you can apply the idea of the endless now to the beginning of the game. So yeah, it's great. It's a fantastic game, and I can't wait to see if I can connect even more with it by the time we finish.
Man, I'm number one so glad to hear that, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this replay ends up going for you, because I haven't replayed any of these yet, and I'm scared. I'm scared to do so, because my first playthrough for all of these games was so unbelievably special that, and everything that I love always gets better on a replay or a reread or a rewatch or whatever. And so I am terrified, man. I can't even tell you there is no limit to how high these things can go for me. as we move on to Xenoblade 2, because I definitely want to get your thoughts first before I go on my spiel, because Lord knows my spiel for that one's going to be pretty crazy. But before we do get into that, I just wanted to quickly highlight something that's really beautiful from what you just said in regards to this experience here with your mom, and I think that really ties into what I love so much about Xenoblade 3 is that those things are irreplaceable. Right now, we're in the middle of a situation where a lot of individuals are afraid of the future that is incoming that we have no knowledge of. I would dare say, we're about to enter the biggest shift in our economy and on a worldwide scale since like we switched over from being a farmer centric economy to an industrial based one, or once the educational system took the way that it is in the present day. We're about to see a massive shift, the likes of which we haven't seen in our lifetime. So because of that unknown future, there's many different responses to that. There could be a hopelessness. There could be a lot of ways of looking at that with, why me? Why our generation? Why did we have to go through this? But I think something that's really beautiful about Xenoblade 3 and the journey that you're having here, experiencing this with your mom, is that human connection and what blossoms from that. As long as that exists, I think no matter what ends up happening here, 5, 10, 15, 20, however long the planet Earth will still be around, as long as we're still here and willing to connect with each other, even when it's like the Cyberpunk 2077 world and we have a bunch of half androids or full androids or whatever the case may be, as long as human beings / living beings are willing to connect with each other, miracles can occur and a brighter future can come of that. And I love that about all 3 Xenoblade games. But I think the same way that Thousand Year Blood War takes all of Kubo's ideas and explores them in all of the arcs, but it really culminates beautifully in the last one. Xenoblade 3 takes what the first 2 tossed up as an alley-oop for both of their ideas and slam dunked both of them about the beauty of an unknown future and how terrifying that can be, especially with a potential lingering of an incoming death. Like I wonder how much Takahashi and his wife Sorya Saga, how much they must have seen the state of the world post COVID, and wanted to write a story about, because of their love for science fiction, of a beautiful future that can come of this. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I love Xenoblade 3. So I really wanted to touch upon that real quick, because I love the future redeemed concept. DLC aside, I love that DLC, but the idea of redeeming the future is so beautiful to me, and the fact that miracles can occur as long as humanity exists. It reminds me of the Chimera Ant arc with how beautiful of a human tale it is.
Yeah.
But if you have anything to say on that, I'll let you go, and then please give me your thoughts on Xenoblade 2, because that's what I'm very much looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have too much to add about what you said. I totally agree. I think it's interesting that in and around the couple of years most, I guess, impacted, or the couple of years that COVID was most prominent, there are so many stories, specifically video games, that came out during that time that are really, I think, needed. Were needed for that time, where in a point in time, societally, economically, like for all the reasons you said, that are just a sort of encouraging embrace in a way. This year I played earlier in the year I played Death Stranding, which came out just so, like, a few months after COVID really took off, really started.
Yep.
And it's eerie. Obviously, Kojima
Definitely.
didn't base the story off of COVID, considering the release. That just wasn't the case. But it is an ever-present theme and idea that Death Stranding covers in such an interesting, impactful way, and it came out at the perfect time for a lot of people. Xenoblade 3, like you said, for all the reasons you said, is just like that as well. And then Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker actually is so, in my opinion, is so clearly meant to be a story. It's my favorite, straight up my favorite video game story, but it's in response to the loneliness and isolation and despair that people felt during that time, and just in general, but especially during that time. So yeah, I just think it's another example of the importance of art and stories in a very, I'm channeling my inner Ichiban by sort of appreciating that the impact they have on your lives is very tangible. Like, genuinely, it changes them. With regards to Xenoblade 2, I have such an interesting relationship with this one, man.
Man.
So I played Xenoblade 1. I think there are obviously huge stylistic things that are very similar between 1, 2, and 3. The sweeping vistas, the approach to the set pieces, the gameplay, even though it changes up from entry to entry, you can still see that it's the DNA there. I think the very heartfelt, pathos-driven approach, a lot of broad strokes are very similar, but I think it's undeniable that 1 and 2 are incredibly different games, especially in the micro. So my thing was, when it came out, I believe 2017 or so, or around there, I was spoiled. And I was wanting, at a point in my life where I wanted every game to be the greatest thing that appealed directly to my taste. So I wanted Xenoblade 1, 2, I wanted Xenoblade 1 Part 2, That's what I wanted. And I played that, and it is not Xenoblade 1 Part 2. It's very different. And I had a bit of trouble in my first time getting to grips with that. I tried adjusting. I tried realizing that the approach in the scene-to-scene moments, in the thematics, in the macro, in the voice direction even, was so different. But ultimately, I just never... I don't think I was ever able to really properly recover from that. And by the end of it, it's not that I didn't like it. I thought the game was pretty decent. I thought it was pretty solid, but I never really connected with it. And outside of big highlights, like, I straight up think you're lying if you don't think the world design is great, Anyone should be able to enjoy that, I think. The music, one of the best OSTs ever. Great characters, great individual characters that I really liked. Jin, Malos, Morag, fantastic characters. But as a full package, it didn't come together for me in the way I liked, and part of that was my fault because of unfair expectations. And then we got a year or two after it, I was kind of debating the idea of replaying it and maybe getting back into it. Maybe I kind of was self-aware enough to realize that I went into it the wrong way. But coincidentally, unfortunately, that was a point in time right when I was thinking about playing it again where I unfortunately met some toxic people who told me that the only way I could ever like Xenoblade 1 more than Xenoblade 2 was if I didn't understand Xenoblade 2. That's the only way I could prefer 1 to 2. So that made me really salty and really stubborn and really not wanting to admit that I was wrong or that I didn't approach it the right way. And that just made me hold it against the game itself because of toxic people in the fandom. And I just shut that off for years, and it was just like, nope, I'm not going to revisit Xenoblade 2. I don't want to appease people like that by potentially saying it's better than I thought it was, Right. So that's something I've learned to get better at, specifically in the last 3 or 4 years. if there's a toxic One Piece fan or Bleach fan or Naruto fan or Hunter x Hunter fan, I don't hold it against the story. I think it's unfair to do that. It has nothing to do with the story itself. But back then, but I understand when people do, because I was there myself. Sometimes it's just like human condition. You just things happen, and you just don't want to, you don't want to be on that side, quote unquote. But like I said, the past 2 or 3 years, I was able to move past that, and I had been looking at Xenoblade 2 because the fans of Xenoblade 2, you included now, they love this game so much. They express it so much, and I have always felt like that SpongeBob meme with Squidward, like everyone's having fun with Xenoblade 2, and I'm not, and I've missed something. I've clearly missed something. And so for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been wanting to replay it, and I've just been looking for an opportunity because it's a time sink. But your experience through it and the way you expressed yourself and seeing your tweets and hearing your thoughts and your video and all that, I'm just like, man, this is the time. My boy is going through it. His life has been changed.
That's right.
Whether or not I enjoy it more, this is the time. Go in with a clear mind, no biases, completely open-minded, open heart. Let's just do it. So I did. It took me, I don't know, maybe a few weeks, maybe a couple months, and I went through it. And at the end of it all, I do enjoy it more than I did. But ultimately, I'm left with, it's a good game, and it's not a favorite, and it's not something I have strong feelings for. And I'm very at peace with that, because as much as we can try, we're just not going to love every work of art, even if I look at the individual pieces of it, and I put it together in my mind and go, this should be a 10 out of 10 for me. And it's not, and your instinct is to be frustrated, but that's just how it is sometimes,
That's right.
And what I'm glad more than anything else is, while I can't relate to you for having it as one of your favorite games of all time and having it as this life-changing experience, I can now confidently absolutely see why it is that for you, and others. And all of the preconceived notions of maybe the reasons I didn't like it before, that I would tout when I was bitter about, people being annoying, like, I would just say sometimes, I don't know, it's too classically anime in the way that stereotypically people say anime flaws are. I straight up just don't think that. I played it. There's far less of that than people say there is. And when it's there, most of the time I think it's pretty charming. Like so many of the flaws I thought were there just really aren't. And I have a clear idea of what I love about it, what I am not a huge fan of. And overall, I just have a really secure and confident opinion about it. And it was a really valuable experience. And I got to thank you, because you tempted me to do that in the first place. And I'm still really appreciative about it. I think the idea, particularly what struck me, is the idea of, literally from the first scene, the idea of kind of similar to Xenoblade 3, but also very different, of cycles of life. We see a Titan just eroding and disappearing, and it immediately calls to action both the idea of life ending and of new beginnings, of new cycles. There's the makeup of what Titans even are, and how that coalesces throughout the story. I found that very enticing and very interesting, the way it's approached through the literal world design, this idea of cycles and eras, very One Piece-like. And Gramps himself is a personification of that. And then I just loved Zeke this playthrough. I loved Zeke. I loved Morag. Yeah, I love Morag. I gained a greater appreciation for a lot of the characters and their function, and I think the way it then coalesces that theme of the kind of the ephemerality of life and eras and cycles with what it views on the views on humanity, and how Rex is so unerring in his hope and idealism for both the world and people. The way those two ideas coalesce, I think, came together in a really satisfying way, and really spoke to me. And the idea of Elysium, this paradise that is forever seemingly beyond your reach, and how that's approached through each of the characters. Just lots of really cool stuff in it. So I take away a lot from it, even if it's not a game I love. And I just love hearing, now that I've gotten past that, I just love hearing people talk about why it speaks to them. I've heard you do it. I can't wait to hear you say more now. But yeah, a very, in some ways, just as interesting a relationship with Xenoblade 2 as it is with 3 and 1 for me. Just very different, but I appreciate it so much all the same.
Man, see, this is why I'm so glad, because we talked about this before, that I really wanted to hear your thoughts on this one in particular, because I feel this way about a lot of my favorites. Well, first, before I get into that, I'm gonna stop to the One Piece fans, because when you said what you just said about the Xenoblade 2 fans talking about you don't understand the story, it reminded me of the One Piece fans. One Piece fans,
yeah.
One Piece fans, please. When someone says that they don't like, I don't care what it is, Wano, Gear 5, something controversial. Don't say it's because they don't understand the story, man. I hear that take so much, bro. You don't understand the themes. You don't understand the story, bro. Sometimes people just either don't rock with it or it's not the right time for it, man. Just stop. Whenever you said that, it reminded me so much of this fan base. So I love the One Piece community, but man, that stuff in particular really gets on my nerves sometimes. But regardless,
Definitely.
I digress. I'm so glad that you brought that up. and now that you've gotten into all three, you know how crazy all three of those fan bases can be for many different things.
Yep.
But regardless, going into Xenoblade 2, this is so. Whenever we talked about Expedition 33, we were talking about how wonderful that game is, because not only is its story a generational experience that it still sticks with me today, but that its gameplay, just being there, made me want to keep playing, even in the post-game content, even in the side content, even if there was no payoff. I just liked being there and playing it. And that's something that I compared to Final Fantasy VII, which is what you said about Xenoblade 1 really resonated with me, because that's exactly how I feel about Final Fantasy VII, where even though I love that game's story and I love that game's characters, that doesn't compare to how I feel looking back on the time spent in between those plot beats. The time going on the Chocobo and trying to get Knights of the Round, or beating Ruby Weapon, or going to Gold Saucer, which is why I think Rebirth is my favorite out of the entire compilation, because Rebirth is the video game. Rebirth is capturing all of those beautiful gameplay elements, the things that make that globetrotting adventure so much fun, the in-betweens of it all, and giving it all payoff. Like, oh, this side quest thing that you go on a trail for and go towards the end of it, and in the original game maybe there was like a materia or something there. No, we're gonna give you a really beautiful moment of either fan service or payoff, and that's something I love about the original FF7, and that's something I really loved about Rebirth, and it's one of the reasons why those games, exactly right, those detours. And that is the thing that makes those games so beautiful to me. Xenoblade 2 is that plus my love for One Piece, and I would dare say many other things put into one. I've been trying to come to terms with just how much I love this game for the past couple of months. I actually have a near 25,000 word document where I wrote a completed rough draft of an essay that I wanted to publish somewhere about why I love this game as much as I do. I'll have to go back and edit it at some point, but it's that's how much it's taken me to really come to terms. 3 to 4 hour video, listening to other people, going in. It's that experience. What was truly what I needed more than anything else at that moment. I don't even know where to begin with this game. It's like I came off of Xenoblade 1, an experience that changed the course of my life from that point forward, and then presented me another opportunity to experience One Piece again for the first time. And I will always be grateful to both you and Xenoblade 1 for that, because I will never forget popping in Xenoblade 2, and from the moment that the game started until it ended, those were the fastest weeks of my entire life, bro. I, number one, had the most fun I have ever had playing a new IP like that. The reason why I stress that is because playing, I don't know, whether it be like a Cold Steel 4 or a Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth that's based so much on legacy and appreciating the payoff to all of these years. That's something I really love, so I'm going to be invested and immersed. But I didn't know these characters. And I knew less about what, like I said in the tweets, I only knew Pyra as Smash Bros. Girl and remembered some of the characters from the Smash Brothers stage. And that was it. And so to get in this as a brand new IP, it was the most I'd ever fallen for something right off the bat since I got into One Piece. It's why I started off my review for the game showing a cup that I made when I was like 7, where I put the Blue Eyes White Dragon on there, I put John Cena on there, I put Star Wars on there, I like all of that stuff in one cup, because all that stuff was super cool to me at that age. And I was like, I'm just going to put everything I think is cool on this thing, because everybody else should think it's cool too. And that to me is what Xenoblade 2 is. Tetsuya Takahashi and the team put together everything these individuals think is dope in a single package. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, everything that I think is dope is in this game. It's got hands, it's got ancient civilizations, it has mysteries to be solved, it has my family, it has probably, you want to talk about top tier video game soundtracks, you said it was one of the greatest ever. I 100% agree. Legendary soundtrack. And in the midst of all of that, has one of the most powerful messages that I have ever heard from anything, let alone a game. And I think the reason why it impacted me so much is that going into this game in real time, I was feeling really detached from a lot of things. And this traces back to the end of 2024, or right before I wrote the novel that I tried to get published. I was actually thinking of whether or not this was really it for me anymore. I didn't know what I wanted to do on YouTube anymore. There was, outside of One Piece, obviously, I didn't know what else I wanted to do. There were things that I knew I sort of had an idea of what I wanted to do, but nothing really lit a fire in me where I really wanted to do it. And so what ended up happening is I spent a lot of time utilizing the time that I would have made creating a video, writing instead, because that's what my heart wanted to do. Is to create. It's what I've always dreamed of doing. It's what I could continue to love doing. And so something was just not connecting anymore with me and the YouTube side of things outside of the One Piece stuff. And I didn't know what happened. I don't know what changed. And it happened out of nowhere. And so when the beginning of the year happened and we were having so much fun with Elbaf and all of the craziness happening there, I felt a little bit of an itch to do stuff, but all of it was still mainly for One Piece. And so I was like, man, I don't know where the drive to make videos went. I understand that I'm currently trying to publish a novel and all of that creative inspiration is going there, but I don't know what did I lose along the way. And the moment I've started Xenoblade 2, I understood. It was that desire to want to talk about what I think is cool with other people who also think it's cool. And I think I lost sight trying so hard. There's a quote from Arcane. We talk about it all the time, but it's in the pursuit of great, we fail to do good. And that was truly what was wrong with me at the time, where in the pursuit of attempting to do so many things, my ambitions went so far beyond that I forgot why I started doing all this in the first place, which is that I had no one else to talk to about One Piece, One Piece about at the time, and I created the channel just to find other people who also thought this stuff was dope. And so when I started Xenoblade, the first one as well, but getting into the second one, and I wanted to share my entire journey. I was so enamored with this game that I couldn't help but just want to share how amazing I thought everything was. And it was a childlike wonder that I felt like it was the same childlike wonder I had when I was a kid, when I would go to school, go to the lunch table and be like, yo, did y'all fight Ruby Weapon? Or did y'all see that episode of SmackDown? Or that episode of Avatar? Or that episode of Ben 10? Or Dragon Ball? Or whatever. It awakened this childlike love of just wanting to share what I think was dope with no filter. It's like something overtook me while I was playing that game, where I was transported to the mindset of being a kid once again. And it was so needed for me, because not only was I feeling detached on the YouTube side of things, I felt like I was also even losing my spark, my desire to want to go out and experience all the stories that I love with all my heart, because I had found that there was something that, especially coming over from the book side of things, that I don't know if it was just the collection of novels that I'd read up until that point, or I'm not going to blame those authors. Of course, I'm going to blame myself. But there was just something that I continued to feel detached. Like I sort of like what you were just talking about with Xenoblade 2. It's like these things feel like they should speak to me, but they're not. And I don't understand why. And it was sort of, it was making me frustrated, where I was like, it's a me thing. Maybe I'm just going through it right now and I don't get it. But no. When I started Xenoblade 2, I understood. This is what speaks to me. There's a quote that Ren has in Trails into Reverie that's like, the heart can't help what it loves. And that especially goes for fiction. We cannot attach something that we should expect to do, even though I do it all the time. Like, oh yeah, I should definitely expect to love this. And that's why what you just said resonated with me so much, because it's like the idea of being presented with something that applied to all of my tastes, to everything that I wanted. This is a battle shonen at its core. It is a love letter to anime. It's a love letter to Dragon Ball and One Piece and Bleach and Naruto and all of these things, in structure and characters and payoff and moments. And then in anime, to like Gurren Lagann, the way that Chapter 7 is a response to Chapter 3 is like how Evangelion, or how Gurren Lagann is a response to Evangelion. There's so much at play here with the insert songs, with all of that just really, really spoke to me. And it lit a spark that, similar to how I talked about with Trails, that I really needed that, because that journey reminded me of how much fun it was to catch up to a long-running series, the likes of which I did so much when I first got into anime and manga. And this one captured that, but in such a short amount of time. And even outside of that, dude, the game. I remember getting to Chapter 4, and I was like, oh my goodness, this gameplay loop. I was as hooked to this gameplay loop as I was to like I always compare like the height of gameplay loops to be like, I don't know, like an Elden Ring or a Breath of the Wild or like a Twilight Prince or like one of the Zeldas. Zelda's like the king of gameplay loops, or like a Expedition 33 or Ace Attorney, where it just has you so locked in. And there was something about wanting to get those character interactions, get those moments with the either a new Blade quest or go out and grind a boss because he could give me something where I could pull for another unit that could potentially give me another quest, or go into a brand new area that, based on the time of day, they'll either have a new conversation, a new piece of dialogue pop, or we could have some new music. And so it was like, it incentivized exploration. It made me want to keep playing on that side of things. I wanted to keep finding out what was happening in the story. And then, as early as the end of Chapter 2, I already called all these characters family. I love these characters as much as I love New Class 7 and the cast of FF7, which are my favorite casts in games. I just loved so much about it. And that was only in the first half of the game. I forgot this was a Xeno game. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm playing an anime right now. This is beautiful. This is speaking to all of my stuff. Nothing could have prepared me for when this game switched on the Xeno effect, and we got the science fiction elements. We got the stuff for Hyperion in 2001, and all those referential things that they've always done in Xeno. But truly honing in on specific elements of certain things in science fiction, and having that play out from chapters 8 and 9 and 10, it just captured so many things that I'm personally invested in, I'm personally interested in, but also just to my taste, man. And then when you get to the end of it all, and my boy Rex, bro, Rex, first playthrough was like the first time I ever saw Luffy, where I was just like, man, I don't care what this dude does. I'm with him. I'm with him to the end, bro. I don't care. You know, like I love
Salvager's Code, baby.
Salvager's Code, bro. Listen, the idea of a salvager, the fact that Rex goes in each and every single day, not knowing what's on the other side. It could be bronze, it could be silver, it could be gold, it could be platinum.
Right.
But the only way you're gonna find out is if you go down and dive and try to get it. And all of that culminating there at the end with something so incredibly personal to me goes back to the beginning of this conversation. What is your role in this world? And right after Rex speaks to his creator, which is something very personal to me because, as an individual who grew up in a religious household, it was sort of something that I wanted to reject for a long period of time. And it took a very long time for me to come to terms with me and God. And so that was really personal for me, not just in that sense, but also with my parents as well. When Rex says that he's grateful to his creator for the relationships, the experiences that he's had since then, I thought immediately about, obviously, about my relationship with God, but also with my parents, because I was so incredibly grateful to my parents in that moment. Being the individuals who brought me into this world, I can only imagine how difficult it must have been for them, especially in that time period. And so it's a game that's based so much on gratitude, and gratitude for the experiences and relationships that you have with others. The idea of blades and the memories, Jin wanting to go back to a time when he did have those memories, and being an endless search of those, coming in one-on-one with Rex, and Rex laying it in on him as like, no, it's the present. And then that idea of your role in this world being individual to each and every single person, but you're the only way you're ever going to find that out is by seeing yourself in the mirror through the others that you love, through the experiences that you have, through the things that mean the most to you, and by living each and every single day. And so, to answer the question I posed at the beginning of this, I can't say for certain that I know what my role in this world is, but what I can say right now is the role that I have is to share what I think is dope with other people, because they may also think it's dope too. But I think at the end of the day, I also really want to create something that can make other individuals feel the same way Xenoblade 2 makes me feel, the same way One Piece makes me feel, the same way FF7 makes me feel, the same way Monogatari makes me feel. These things that are really in-depth and personal. I want to create that thing that can make other individuals then want to pass that on afterwards. And I understood in that moment, if I fail, sure, that's all right. Because maybe I'll inspire someone else within that failure. I'll be the Goldie Roger for the Luffy of the future. And I've accepted that if that is my role, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, all of us together in humanity, we're in this together to try to create a better future for ourselves. And so that's why I love Xenoblade 2. Because it's a culmination of a lot of beautiful ideas that really resonate with me personally. But on top of that, it's just a fun game, man. It's a fun game I still play now because I can't get enough of its gameplay, with characters that I call family and with a place that I most certainly call home. I flip and love this game, AJ, and it's your fault why I'm so hooked on it. That is Xenoblade Trilogy, ladies and gentlemen.
Just really, so you just said you hope you inspire, even if you fail, you hope you inspire other people or impact them in some way. I mean, we don't know if you've failed or not, or whatever your definition of success or failure would be. That's your thing. We don't know, and we don't know what the future holds. But regardless, I guarantee you've already done that. Like you the way you approach fiction, the way you express yourself, the way you do your content, and all of that, I think you've already impacted not just a person, but multiple, like tons of people. You definitely make me want to, and multiple times have made me want to approach fiction with a more wide-eyed, appreciative stance. The sort of philosophy that I have about storytelling and respecting stories and all that is definitely, to an extent, impacted by you. So I just want to say you've already done that, and hopefully, regardless of whether you consider whatever happens success or failure, you'll continue to, and I'm sure you will. But I just want to say that because I think you already have.
Thank you for that, brother, man. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. And to your point about how Xenoblade 2 is so much about through your relationships and your adventure and the little moments and all of that, being able to understand your identity and role in the world and all that, it kind of harkens to the idea that I think Xenoblade 2 thematically is such a great transition point and bridge between 1 and 3, while also, of course, being just standing on its own, of course. But it takes the idea at the end of Xenoblade 1 and kind of offers a counter stance to it, which is, Xenoblade 1 is very much, we need to live for ourselves. With regards to the idea of gods, once there are forms of life that are put out there, they are not beholden to a god. There is no ownership there. And to think that is antithetical to everything that the game is. But at the same time, I love that Xenoblade 2 offers the flip side of that, which is interesting with what it does with the Zanza character and, the two sides of all that. Through saying, like you said, appreciation for having created us, or Rex, or the characters in the first place. That in itself is a wonderful gift, regardless of anything else, that should be cherished. And then it takes that, and then I think propels it into the idea of why life is so worth living, which is present in the first one, but I think it approaches it more directly in Xenoblade 2, which then is a great, which is a great jumping point for 3, where that is in every second of that game is about that. So I just really appreciate the functional, mechanical thematics of 2, because I think it's, in that way, probably the most important for the series for the overall thematic ideas.
Dude, thank you to the audience and to you for listening to my spiel there. I really, really love that game. and like I said, it similar to Xenoblade 3, and the first one, that entire trilogy really has changed the trajectory of how I see things, man. And I'm thankful. Like I said, especially going back to the end of Xenoblade 2, I think about that line every single day. What is your role in this world? And ever since then, I feel like I've had a much closer relationship with both the good Lord up above as well as my parents, because I really am grateful to the individuals who brought me into this beautiful, beautiful world. Speaking of this beautiful, beautiful world, it is time to transition into another game franchise that we have talked about in length for, I think it was 5 hours last time, but we're on the precipice of what I believe is about to be the announcement of Final Fantasy VII Part 3 at the Game Awards. I thought it was going to happen in September, but it looks like they are getting ready for something big. I don't know if it's going to be a trailer like last time, where it's just simply going to be like when Zack was carrying Cloud and we got the rebirth reveal during the 30th or the 25th anniversary stuff. But with the 30th anniversary, I'm assuming being when they want to drop this, the latest that they can reveal Final Fantasy VII Part 3 is at the Game Awards. So I wanted to ask you some last-minute predictions for the name of the game. Where do you think we start? And do we get a trailer? Like an actual, like you and I can sit down again and pick apart the trailer type of trailer? Or do we get just a teaser trailer? Like, what do you think is inbound with the FF7 Part 3 potential reveal on the horizon?
So I'm admittedly not as locked into the industry and reveal trailers and all that sort of thing as as other people as into games tend to be. So I could be wrong, but given like I've been keeping up to date with developer notes, Hamaguchi's been talking a lot lately.
A lot.
Quite a bit about things to expect for Part 3, the overall approach, progress in general, all of which is very encouraging, by the way. I love some of what he said about the approach to content and pacing. But I think like it feels literally right after Rebirth came out, they talked about how they've already done a decent amount. They've already progressed a lot of the scenario, a lot of the story structure. I think they had started putting genuine direct work into the actual development. So I think, and they've consistently for almost 2 years now said that it's going very well. So I think we can expect a trailer. I think we can.
Let's go, baby.
I would like to think so. I mean, I might be wrong, but I think it's the perfect time for it. I don't think it's too early. And it just feels right. Like it doesn't feel like it's a coincidence that talk about it has really been building the past few weeks. So I think it's fair to expect it, and I would love there to be one so we can then discuss it. Because man, we could. We have had every single one of our talks has been amazing, but to this day, I think that Rebirth one was maybe my favorite. That was so much fun.
Same.
And we could talk forever about that series. So yeah, I think so. With regards to sorry, what were the other two? You said the name, and what was the other thing you asked?
The name and about where do you think the game starts? Like for the introductory sequence for Part 3.
Oh yeah. Okay, so let's do the name first, because my answer to that is shorter. I used to have very strong opinions about what it could be. Now I think it could be one of 3 or 4, that all of which could fit. So immediately after finishing not immediately after finishing, but in the build-up to Rebirth, I thought that Reunion was just the no-brainer title because of a reunion with the meta, in a meta way, to the the idea of going back to zero with the events of the original game, which I think it does philosophically, narratively, in a lot of ways. Reunion is just an important word for Final Fantasy VII. Like, for a bunch of reasons, I thought it would be reunion, but Crisis Core used that in the remake, so that was immediately taken off. I think Return works. A few people have said Return. I think Requiem could be really cool. I love the idea of Requiem, specifically thinking about Sephiroth.
Yes.
And Sephiroth and the story as a whole, because a big thing in what the developers have been saying is that at the end of this, like, there is going to be finality. There is going to be, I want these characters to, I think they've said they want them to be happy, but there's also just going to be a clear idea of the end. So Requiem kind of fits into that. But also at the same time, I don't know how confident I am. I think Requiem could be amazing and would be very fitting. But at the same time, I think that they'll want there to be optimism, and I think there will be optimism at the end of the game. And I think Requiem might be a little too dark.
Yeah.
Or in that way, so they might not want to go with that. Those are a couple of ideas. I'd love to hear what you think as well.
No, for sure.
I think I have one or two, but I'm forgetting them at the moment. I'm pretty open to so many things, and more than anything, I'm just really curious about the direction they'll go with it, because I think it could tell you a lot about the game, and the tone of the game and all of that. And then as for where we'll start, the location, I think. So two things. Two things that are pretty strong in my mind, both of which are surely going to be wrong. One is, I think that one of the most important characters of this franchise is obviously Sephiroth, but I think a lot of very subtextual things have been cooking with a lot of his important little lines in Rebirth, at the Edge of Creation in Remake, in the sort of continuum where all the bits of different world lines are flowing through, where he talks to Cloud. There's so much you can latch onto in the subtext of his dialogue, and then there's so much going on with him in Ever Crisis 2 that spawned so many theories. So I could see some sort of potential Sephiroth POV.
I love that.
Which I think would be really, really cool. I think I don't think it's going to be Cloud, is how I'll put it this way, because one, they started Rebirth with Zack. I don't think they'll do that again. But I think because of it just seems fitting for it to be Cloud in the beginning, Zack in Rebirth, maybe Sephiroth in Part 3 for the trio from the Rebirth cover. But it just feels fitting for me for it to not be Cloud, especially because of where he's at right now. Our boy is in one of the most desperate, precarious situations I've ever seen a character psychologically. It is like, it's hard to grasp. We talked about this, but you kind of have to remind yourself how dark the end of Rebirth was. It is incredibly grim. It is so upsetting where Cloud is at. And there's so many things that are, I think, unreliable. And it's just very disturbing to see him that way. And because of this, I think a big reason that Rebirth was so lighthearted is because it was not that this game series will ever lose that lighthearted, silly charm, because it'll definitely be back to some extent, but we have now entered the dark portion of the story. So I think in Rebirth they really went all out with it while they could, because they can't really go that hard with it without disrupting the tone in this. So we could see, I like the idea of a Tifa POV in the immediate aftermath as they leave. Maybe shifting some things with Bone Village for a sort of sobering, ominous start before the Icicle in stuff. I think we need a bit of a buffer before that. I would imagine. So I like the idea of a Tifa POV where you're kind of watching Cloud do very strange things that are very upsetting for Tifa, very upsetting for everyone, but especially her. I think part 3 is going to be a Tifa story. Like, she's going to be...
Yes.
Cloud's going to be the most important character, but she's going to be right up there. This is her time. So I like the idea of a Tifa POV as well. In terms of where it could be Bone Village, it could be in the immediate aftermath of Aerith's death. It could be any of those. So those are some of my thoughts.
All right, you were cooking. You're definitely cooking. I love well, first and foremost, I also think there's going to be a trailer. I'm thinking they're going to take the Xenoblade 3 approach and tie things back to the beginning. So I think the trailer to announce part 3 is going to be just like the trailer to announce the Remake Trilogy. So it'll be like just like the original announcement trailer, but with some sort of twist.
Yeah.
I think it'll have some sort of twist. It's gonna go in on the nostalgia, but it's gonna provide something new, and I think that's gonna be with a purpose, because I think that's what this game is gonna go for. It's going to be the thing that ties up the entire trilogy, which means similar to Rebirth, it's going to have so many references to the rest of the compilation, to the original game, and to all of the other FF7 media, because it has that finality to that. And so I think because of that, I love the Requiem idea, and I love the Return idea. But I think if it's called Final Fantasy VII Remembrance, it would tie into...
Ooh.
It would really tie into that idea of remembering something near and dear, especially in context that Cloud has to remember somebody who died and doesn't have that memory. So
that's perfect. I love that.
You know what I mean? So that's why I love the remembrance idea, because not only is it remembrance for FF7 as a whole, but it's also Cloud remembering something that is going to be the pivotal moment in that game. That's gonna, then that's when Tifa starts snapping him out of it, and we get the true Cloud after that. And so that's gonna be so incredibly key. And I think everything's gonna revolve around that. And so and listen, if it ends up being any of the other ones, I'm so down for it, because there have been so many different the game. Disc 2 and Disc 3 balance so many different tones that it could be any of the titles we mentioned and any that we have not mentioned, and they would still probably make sense because of how many different things are being balanced there in that disc. Now, as far as what you were talking about with the POVs, I love the Sephiroth idea. And you know what?
I think you cut out for me.
Okay, can you hear me?
Okay, sorry. You cut out. I can hear you now. Yeah, you cut out for me for
Perfect.
a second, and I was wondering what was going on. Okay. I think it just cut off while you were talking about maybe just the last 20, 30 seconds or so.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I noticed my I heard the ba-ding from Discord. I was like, what happened?
Okay, got it.
Okay. But yeah, getting back into it, I definitely do think that the game is going to have a similar starting point as Rebirth, where we're not going to be in the mind space of anyone in either our time or maybe even in the present time. I love the idea of a young Sephiroth flashback that's been proposed by several members of the community. I think it's super cool. I love the idea of like what you just said with the Tifa POV. That's my ideal starting point, because like you said, I strongly do believe Tifa is the most important character for Disc 2. Tifa and Sid, it's kind of crazy how Tifa, Sid, and Barrett end up taking like the reign for a majority of Disc 2. So it's going to be really interesting to see how those things get balanced, especially with the Wu-Tai stuff. We got to get the Vincent stuff. So there's a lot of things they got to do here, but I think at the center of it all, for sure, I still believe that Tifa's going to be the number one POV. So starting it there, Please, I need that, especially seeing Cloud from her perspective. I most certain, we talked about this in the review or in the spoiler cast. Would you just imagine Tifa seeing Cloud talking to himself? Like it's gonna break your heart.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's that's the type of stuff that makes me want that POV, and I really hope that ends up being the case wherever it ends up being, whether it's Bone Village or like you said, or Icicle Inn. We go right into that, get the snowboarding minigame right off the bat, and
Yep.
and all that, or whether we go straight into Wutai or something. I have no idea, but I also want to bring up another potential possibility if we're going back and tying up everything. This game, if we want to take I always call it the Metroid approach of giving the characters, giving the player access to all of the abilities before they lose them, which is like video game 101. I think if Final Fantasy VII wants to give you that, you start this game off with Advent Children. And and the reason why I say that is because just imagine the insane amount of euphoria, regardless of how somebody feels about Advent Children or not. The amount of euphoria and hype that would follow you playing a section from the movie that they have called back to more than any other piece of FF7 media in this trilogy besides the original game. I have a lot of love for that movie, so I would be over the moon, and it would make sense from a video game standpoint, and it might even connect to the ending of the game, considering how insane we might really go with this stuff by the time the credits run. But if we don't get that at the beginning, I think at some point, post-credits, pre-credits, DLC, whenever, I think Advent Children will be playable. The reason why I think it would be cool at the beginning is because of the video game approach of taking stuff away from the player and making them yearn for having it over again. I mean, come on, man. Starting off the game with Omni Slash and like all the summons potentially and on the motorcycle, it would be awesome. It would be awesome. And then once you get back into the present time, you're like, man. And then for anybody playing this trilogy for the first time, they're probably really confused, but that wouldn't be the first time. So I don't know. I only bring that up as like a hypothetical, but I definitely do think the first 15 minutes of the game will be similar to Rebirth, where we follow another perspective that's not our own. Whether that's, like I said, alternate Cloud in Advent Children, whether that is young Sephiroth, or whether that is us being in either a flashback sequence or a sequence with Aerith, right? Someone that's not in our main party, I believe will be the first 15 minutes. And then we transition into what you were just talking about with the Tifa POV. And that's where that's where the credits probably drop. We get the title drop, Final Fantasy VII. We see like Tifa going through the snowy forest, following Cloud, who's like happy-go-lucky. The rest of the party's somber, and we go into Icicle and whatever. That's how I can see the game starting. But I definitely do think the first 15 minutes is going to be something wacky, crazy, and going to set up the tone for what we could expect from a referential standpoint for the rest of it. And if it starts off, like you just said, with Sephiroth, inject it. Please inject it.
Yeah.
I need it.
That sounds dramatically like very on point. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about what I actually think is going to happen in the beginning. I've kind of just taken a sit back and see what happens approach, but the way you describe it, it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, it's pretty in line with what I thought too, but like the specifics, they feel very apt. I like the idea of having someone left field, yet very fitting. It could be Sephiroth. Like, I think, obviously, I'm not the type to be like, I need this to happen, otherwise I'll be disappointed. But like, this is, like we were saying, it's Tifa's story. It's Cloud's story, where he literally is put back together again. I think, arguably up until this point, it's been primarily Aerith's story.
Definitely.
And she'll obviously continue to be a huge factor with the tragedy of where she's at the moment. But I think the third really important character will be Sephiroth. And something I really, really want to happen, or would be really cool or something, is this guy needs to rest. He needs to just let it go. He has been, literally in a very meta way, he's been haunting the franchise. The franchise has been going on in all the ancillary works. He's been doing anything to just continue to exist into infinity and display his rage against those who would take all that was taken from him. Like all this, he just can't see what our party can, the value and the simplicity of life. And what's so sad is that it's not his fault. It's not his fault at all. But what I want for him is, I would love some sort of, whether it's in the live stream, whether it's metaphorical, whether it's more abstract and thematic, there is no one who can understand what Sephiroth has gone through, I think, or very few, more than Aerith. I think there 100%. Are huge parallels and similarities between the two, and they're such a great dynamic because they go about life in totally opposite ways. And I'm sure Aerith will be the first to admit that part of that is because she got, despite the immense misfortune for the first 8-10 years of her life, and going forward, but specifically her early childhood, she's been in some ways lucky since then to meet the party and to meet these people who mean so much to her. So I would love some sort of reconciliation where the moment where Sephiroth finally starts to let go and realize that it's okay to let go and it's okay for things to end. Aerith will in some way be there to comfort him and say that he's not alone and say that she understands him. And I just want them to share something there, which and these two who will ultimately both, I think, die in the game, but will forever be remembered. And that's why I love your remembrance idea. It's that element of finality that you get with Requiem, but it's not as dark. There's still an uplifting element to it. There's still hope that we will remember these people. We will remember this franchise going into the future. It has ended, but at the same time it hasn't. So it just feels tonally very appropriate for Aerith, Sephiroth, Zack, the franchise as a whole, the story. I think TLDR, I love the remembrance idea.
Bro, I mean, if it ends up being the case, I mean, we might be a month out, a month and some change out from finding out the direction we could potentially be heading in. So I'm so excited for F7 Part 3. I know you are as well. Just recently, they posted a collaboration image with Expedition 33, which I thought was awesome. And it looks super, super cool. But yeah, FF7, so excited for that. And definitely, if we get a trailer, we'll be back with some more stuff in regards to that. But moving on to the manga side of things, I am so glad that you brought this up to me. So, just to provide a little bit of inside baseball to anybody listening to this, I presented AJ with like a list of things that I really wanted to talk about, and was like, bro, if there's anything that you want to add on to like the must talk, we got to talk about it. And my boy was like, bro, we got to talk about Steel Ball Run. So we are here today, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about our favorite horse race across the United States of America. This is something that, thanks to AJ, I watched every stream until the Scary Monsters stuff. So right around there is when I got into Xenoblade. And then I abandoned ship for everything in life outside of like One Piece reaction streams. Everything else took a backseat to the Xenoblade stuff. But I am so curious to hear your thoughts on Steel Ball Run, the rest of Steel Ball Run, the characters in Steel Ball Run, the arcs that take place after, especially with your journey and history with JoJo. How because I saw your final post on Steel Ball Run and how much you enjoyed it. That is a story that means so much to me and was one of those like really instrumental early stories. I would say, AJ, that Steel Ball Run for me is sort of the way that you describe how Fate Zero and Attack on Titan is for you, where it really is that type of like really early on in the journey that sort of started shaping the tastes in not just anime and manga, but also really has something personal that you were able to resonate with and made you want to keep continuing to seek stuff out like this. And so, but yeah, Steel Ball Run, man, talk to me.
So, just a tiny bit of context. The ways that I've described Xenoblade 2, but to a, I guess, greater extent, I've always felt that way with JoJo's. JoJo's has been a series that I really, really appreciated artistically, but have never really loved and never really gotten into it. I just kind of concluded it wasn't really my thing. That was after watching the first 6 parts, and I do think it's important that I never read the source material. It was always the anime. So that could be a factor, for sure. But after watching the first 6 parts, I think very individual characters are awesome. I love Rohan and Pucci and Kita and Josuke, and a lot of these characters, Jolene, are really good. And I think a lot of the concepts are really awesome. I think it's such a creative, bold, imaginative series, and I just love the artistic merit in it without really enjoying it a ton. But because of its place in history, because of how much respect I have for Araki as a creator, from the minute I saw maybe just even part 1, I went, this is something I want to keep watching. Even if my enjoyment level isn't super high, I want to just see where this goes. But I had kind of concluded, like, if I get anything more than this is pretty good out of it, that'll be a bonus. But people kept telling me, 1, read the manga, which I may do for the first 6 parts down the line. I'm really interested in doing that. But that was the first thing. And then the second was maybe Steel Ball Run. Maybe Steel Ball Run could be what you're looking for in terms of the things I look for in stories I really love. And I said, maybe. And people are going, but don't expect it to not be JoJo's. And I said, of course, like, I would never want it to not be JoJo's. I absolutely want it to feel like, I don't want it to be Berserk, you know?
Imagine.
But so for years now, I've had my eye on part 7. And after finishing Bleach, the big 3 was done. Well, up to date with One Piece, and we'll see how the rest of the Bleach anime goes. But the big 3 read-throughs were done. And from that point on, it was time to tackle some other stuff that I've been wanting to get to for a while, and part 7 just felt like the perfect one. And the TLDR is, it's the first JoJo's I can wholeheartedly say I love it. I do truly, really, really love it. I think it's honestly, genuinely incredible. I think it has a lot of really fun parallels with Gurren Lagann they're really cool, that are very, like, out there and obvious. Johnny and Gyro are so Simon and Kamina. Lots of little moments. So it was fun to compare and contrast that throughout the run. But it's so JoJo's, it's so wacky, it's so all over the place, the stands, the interactions, the nonsense. But just as characteristic to JoJo as the silliness is this incredibly thought-provoking, dense thematic storytelling that is so hefty, that is so cerebral, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around at times. Like, Araki is incredibly clever.
Yes.
Araki's a genius with the way that some of this stuff. I would stream a bunch of chapters and then kind of have to take half an hour or 60 minutes to just think about what I experienced, which is crazy for a game that's often touted as a story that's often touted as silly above everything, insane above everything. And it is, but it's also incredibly smart. And that's what I love about this. Not only is it smart and so beautifully thematically dense, but it integrates that with genuinely incredibly emotional character work, beautiful character writing, setting-based storytelling, and it all comes together so well. From the moment we get to the final stretch, it's really good up until then. I love the Real Man's World stuff. I love Sugar Mountain, Civil War. I love the first leg of the race. That was so so
What a stream.
enthralling.
What a
But-
stream.
Incredible stream. That was so much fun, man. I had to take a week to recover from that. But up until that point, I'm just like, I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I'm really, really enjoying this. This is definitely my favorite JoJo's part, and I can definitely say with confidence, I really like it. But I hadn't said that I love it. I hadn't thought this is a favorite of mine until we get to basically Diego Brando and Hot Pants' fight with Funny Valentine and onwards. Once we get there, that is just transcendent. That is incredible. Diego's death is so unbelievable. It genuinely shocked me. I couldn't believe how good it was, how conflicting, how complex, how visceral. And then the final fight between Gyro and Johnny, and Gyro's last stand and his legacy with Funny Valentine. But then also the way that Funny Valentine is so beautifully explored in this backloaded segment of the story, how complex he is, how he's a form of evil, but also there's immense sympathy there because he's a product of systematic exploitation. And what he believes he represents, the whole napkin analogy, what it means, conformity versus going with the tide, and how our characters interact with that. How he had this proposal for Johnny about, what if I just let this Gyro, this other world's Gyro, come to be, if you just let me have this, the corpse parts, and all the nuances of that, and how much you can trust his honesty, and like, my God, I just the final stretch of that is one of the most incredible arcs. I all consider it to be pretty much one arc of something I've ever seen, and it's just, oh my God, it's so unbelievably beautiful, and then it ends so in such a lovely way. Also the whole backstory with Johnny and his idea of, I forget the name of the rat, the white rat, but that stuff with his brother.
Was it Danny?
Danny, yes. All that stuff. And by the end of it, I was just so filled with an appreciation for it. The art is unbelievable. The storytelling incredible. I can't wait to see what the anime does with a lot of that stuff.
Me too.
But it just made me excited for Part 8 and onwards as well, while also appreciating so much what may end up being one of the most surprisingly influential stories I've experienced for me, for what it does for my view of maybe my expanding taste, my view of JoJo's as a whole, my view of manga as a whole. It's been so important at such a advanced stage of, I guess, my journey with the medium. So that's just, anime and manga in general. So I just love that for it. And also, JoJo's Part 7 has the distinction of being the series for which the top 4 characters within it for me, there is so little between them, it's unbelievable. Every morning I wake up, I could have a different top 4.
I feel that.
Between Gyro, Johnny, Funny Valentine, and Diego. Any order. Yep. It could be any order.
Any order.
It's crazy.
I feel that.
They're all masterpieces, masterful characters, masterpieces of characters, and they could be in any order. Anyone could say any order of those 4. I'm like, yep, I agree with you, or I can see it, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it's so incredible. Those 4, not to say the rest of the cast are lackluster or anything, far from it, but those 4 are all unbelievable, and it's so just incredible how consistently masterful all 4 are in such different ways. Steel Ball Run, just what a delight. What a delight it was. I loved my time with it.
Man, smile on my face, bro. Tears in my eyes, smile on my face. This is exactly what I'm sure you must have felt hearing me talk about Xenoblade 1 all those months ago. That's how I felt every time we talk about Steel Ball Run. Like, bro, that is it means so much to me. The two series outside of the big three that I've rewatched and reread the most is I've rewatched Hunter x Hunter the most, and I've reread Steel Ball Run the most. And the reason for both of them is I would be pretty similar yet pretty different. But in Steel Ball Run's case, it's always a reminder of why I decided to be a creator in the first place. It's a very inspirational manga. I would say that Steel Ball Run serves a sort of similar purpose to me as Akane-Banashi, where I come out of Akane-Banashi chapters feeling inspired. I mean, really, really inspired to want to create something. Steel Ball Run's very similar, but not just in that regard. It's also personal as well. There's so many things. You brought up the napkin speech. I've brought that up in conversations with my family of like the idea of those who touch the napkin first are the ones to. It's so brilliant. With Johnny and this being a story about him coming into walk, literal and metaphorically. There's so many elements of Steel Ball Run that connect with me and my personal tastes, while also really touching on stuff that ever since I first read it and where I am today, these are things that still continue to resonate. And the biggest of them all, though, is what Sugar Mountain has to say. Sugar Mountain, outside of the final stretch, because I'm right there with you, I think the final stretch is one of the biggest achievements in anime and manga. It is unbelievable how rich and special that final stretch is. But outside of that final stretch, my favorite section in Steel Ball Run is Sugar Mountain. It's the one that I can reread on its own, and I have it's sort of my JoJo's Tsubasa Tiger, where Tsubasa Tiger, I reread that and rewatch that on its own without even rewatching all of Monogatari. I could just watch that by itself as a standalone. So I've watched it so many times, and I feel the same way about Sugar Mountain because it sort of encapsulates why I love Steel Ball Run. The entire arc is based on getting back to a new zero, which is exactly what happened with Johnny Joestar at the beginning of this story, where he's trying to start over again. But the only way that you could do that is by going to the starting line. And in order to get to the starting line, you have to pay a price. In order to enter the Steel Ball Run race, you must pay a price. And in Sugar Mountain, the only way they could advance is by sacrificing everything that they have. And I think that is an unbelievable metaphor for the story as a whole, but also a crazy thing for Rocky to say at that point in his journey of being a mangaka, especially after reading his book, Manga Theory and Practice, and seeing his process and how he got to this point. But that arc in particular has always stood out to me as, not only is it the quintessential moment when Gyro and Johnny's relationship reaches that next level of they are truly connected now and inseparable, but it also presents the moment in story thematically where it's like the glue, the core that sort of allows it all to function, because it captures all of it within that one single thing, sort of like how Skypiea does that for One Piece. And I've always loved Sugar Mountain. It comes right after the first quote unquote legendary stretch of Steel Ball Run, where we had like the Diego Brando stuff in Scary Monsters. Then we had A True Man's World, and then we had the stuff in with Funny Valentine and his wife and Lucy that was so heart pumping and crazy, where it's like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? Then Catch the Rainbow, and then directly after that, Sugar Mountain happens. So it's like it's a breather from all the stuff that's taken place so far, but it's where they're at their most vulnerable too, and I think it's perfect placement, perfect time, and I love that arc so much. So I'm glad that you also enjoyed that one. But shout out to one of the most hype moments in manga history for me, which is when Diego Brando comes out of the Funny Valentine verse with The World. I'll never forget that.
Crazy.
Bro. That joke was so hype.
Insane.
Insane, dude.
If they get Koyasu to voice that in the
Yes.
anime,
Yes.
I will lose my mind. Even if not, it's gonna be
Zawardo!
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. That's gonna be so. I believe because I've heard him say the line in the video game. He's like, "Zawardo, Tokyo. My time is only mine. It's the Tokyo Tomare, or whatever it is. It's so hype, man. It's so hype. I love that panel so much. One of my good friends in the community, he actually drew that panel for me. And like I still have it. Yeah, he drew two panels. He drew Luffy giving Nami the hat back in Arlong Park, as well as that Diego Brando saying "My time is only mine" with the world behind it. It's something I cherish from the beginning of my journey here on YouTube. But I'm so glad that you enjoyed it, and I'm right there with you in regards to the top four. Those four characters are so unbelievably special, man, and I love the Gurren Lagann parallel too. That's so true. If I had to ask before we get off of Stewball Run and that entire journey, how did you feel about the way that there's a certain section? I mean, we're already going into full spoilers anyway. I gotta know how you felt during the Ball Breakers section when number one, Gyro died, but number two, the conversation between Johnny and Funny Valentine after that, and their final interaction together as well. How did you feel about that, bro? Because that is another one of those things that sticks out in my mind. Is like, I can't believe this manga is real. This is nuts.
Yeah, it's maybe it might be my favorite scene in the whole thing. It was absolutely unreal, and not even just thematically, and Araki is always in his bag thematically. There's always incredible thematic juice going on at any moment, but just dramatically, just from panel to panel, I was on the edge of my seat. I had no idea I knew what kind of had to happen. If you look at the context of the full story, and Johnny's not going to give it up. Johnny's not going to want to live with this other Gyro. But the thing is, the way it comes about, the way you see him, struggling with that and fighting with that, and the way that I genuinely believe, I think this is pretty up for interpretation, but I think he absolutely intended to do that, Funny Valentine. I think there is a great deal, obviously there's a big part of that interaction is that there was always going to be an element of sticking to his own ideals. His eyes are unclouded, right? But I do think there's a great amount of honesty in that exchange between these two people who, just through bizarre, miraculous chance, had this one interaction that would shape not just both of their, the impact of both of their lives going forward and then ending, but in a lot of ways the world, the setting. I don't know. I just think it's, the more I think about it and the more I think back to my first experience with it, the more I think it might just be my favorite JoJo scene, full stop. It's unbelievable to me. And it's the sort of thing that if I go back and read, that section again, I might just come away with it with a whole new interpretation. And
Right.
I really, really love that about it.
100%, yeah. You could honestly say that about all of the entirety of Stewball Run, and I say that from personal experience.
Yeah.
I take something from it every single time that I reread it. Actually, the reread that I remember the most was I'd never gone to Washington, D.C., and my family and I took a road trip up there in 2018, which, oddly enough, I was in Washington, D.C. when the Reverie was happening. Very fitting in real time. In real time for the manga. But regardless, I just being there, seeing those historical elements of our reality. I've always had a deep appreciation for history, anyway. But having that fictional context as well, and it really deepened my appreciation for Stewball Run and what Araki was able to do. with that. Another reason, I've said this so many times. Another reason why I love Stone Ocean so much is because of how Araki was able to use Florida as a vehicle to tell his story. And as I've been living here for so long, seeing the way that he was able to use that and use Florida as a storytelling tool is so cool to me. So Stone Ocean will always have a special place in my heart. But I am so excited. You have no idea, AJ, for what your thoughts are going to be on JoJolion, because as well as the JoJo lands. I really love the JoJo lands. I can't wait for it to continue. It has top 1 potential by the time it's all said and done. But I really love JoJolion. JoJolion is my second favorite part. Well, depending on the day, it's either second or third. I love parts 6, 7, and 8 a lot, and it shifts between 6 and 8 for number 2. But I really, really, really love JoJolion, to the point to where at its highest, I think it is one of Araki's best, and has some of his most incredible ideas. So many things that, similar to how you talked about Johnny Gyro and Funny Valentine and Diego Brando, that I don't know, flip of a coin, any of them could be number 1. If somebody were to tell me right now JoJolion is the peak of JoJo, I would never even think of debating that, because that's how special I think JoJolion is. It's just a Steel Bar Run speaks to me more personally, similar to like the Xenoblade 2 conversation from earlier. But JoJolion is so special. I really, really, really love it, and so I am looking forward to seeing, regardless of whether you do a read through on stream or not for that one, how you feel about it, because now that Steel Bar Run has sort of presented this new way of Araki telling his stories, not just to you, but just to all of us in general, JoJolion sort of takes that to a different type of level, in a really unique way that's also referential to the other parts in a super, super cool way. And so I'm excited to see your thoughts on JoJolion, and I think you'll definitely have a good time dissecting and thinking about it, just as much as the community has. It's a really, really special part. So, but that will be when the time comes for that. But getting on to a manga that you and I love very much, and I take any opportunity to promote it. This, I always say, if One Piece didn't exist, this would be my favorite ongoing manga, because of how much it speaks to me personally, and that is Akane-Banashi. And what I mean by favorite ongoing manga, obviously not in terms of placement on my list, but in terms of what I look forward to on a weekly basis. And I feel like Akane-Banashi provides that each and every single week, where as One Piece fills my heart with joy, Akane-Banashi fills my mind with creativity, with love, with an insatiable just thirst for continuing to want to hone my craft and want to connect with others who are also honing their craft. We've talked at length at how special this story is, but the current arc has been what I would dare to say the most incredible stuff in this series so far. I think Akane-Banashi has only gotten better, and it's kind of scary to think about. And so I want to get your thoughts on it, because you're one of the only individuals that I get an opportunity to talk about this series with. What has been your thoughts on Akane-Banashi in this last year, since I think the last time we spoke on it, and on the current arc, man, because it really, really is some special stuff.
I totally agree that it's only gotten better. It's kind of crazy, because I remember when I first checked it out, I'm like, damn, this is a really strong start. I hope that it can keep it up. And not only did it keep it up, but it literally, I think, just gets better with every new arc. So the last arc ended with the, I guess, I think it technically ends with the end of the flashback. And then we see this new phase. By the way, that whole flashback arc and the accompanying stuff in the present time and all that was unbelievable. I remember talking about that as like, soak this in. Anyone who reads Akane-Banashi, soak this in, because I could see this being the best arc in the series. and that would be fine for me if we never return to this quality again, if it takes a bit of a downturn after this. No, it's just gotten better. It's somehow gotten better. And obviously we're going to be talking about the narrative, but artistically, oh my goodness. The way that this part of the narrative is very keen on selling to us the sort of flow state, not perfection, but the polishing of Akane's craft to what seems to be an optimal point. Like she's in some mix of the zone from Kuroko no Basuke and whatever state of mind Yakumo reached when doing Shinigami in Rakugo at the end of season 1. Like, she is moving so unbelievably different, so beautifully connected with the story, and embodying the characters in such an incredible, authentic way to an extent she's never been able to before. But there's a big focus on her not having to try to get any given reaction out of the audience. The focus has been on laughter, but in general, to just allow the story to flow through her. Kind of the way I talked about Yota from Rakugo, right. She is kind of doing what I try to do on a a weekly basis, through just feeling the story so intently and allowing it to flow through her, through seeing everything. I love the way the art represents her as watching herself in the third person, watching herself in front of the audience, being able to look, even though she's not doing it literally, but look at all the micro movements, the little facial expressions, the little cues from the audience, a little chuckle, a laugh, a cough, a shift of expression, and incorporating it all in this flow state as she just lets the story go through her. And me saying all that is, it's easy enough to just say that. But what really sells it is the way it's presented through this incredible art. The art is so good. The spread of her with the world of her Rakugo, her storytelling in the palm of her hand. Yes. Unbelievable. Maybe the best spread in the series. It's definitely up there.
Agreed.
The shots of her eyes viewing the auditorium or the theater. This one shot where she looks simultaneously, or this one, I think it's a full page, maybe, or maybe it's a full spread, of just this very beautiful, light illustration of her where she looks so serene in the midst of this, but also kind of scary, like haunting in a way, a little creepy when she gets into that mode. And then what I love about that is she gets into that mode and it's like, wow, Akane, she's really moving a little different right now. And then in the last chapter or the chapter before that, maybe, she is just like, whew, like she's just how she always is, as if a switch flicks and she's back to regular Akane. It's so cool. But you know what clinches it for me is this unbelievable adversarial, classic shonen, mentor-student, yet rival dynamic between her and Isho, where at the end of it all, Isho just grins. You know what that reminds me of? You know me and this series. It reminds me of Haikyuu with Karasuno versus Kamomedai, where Hinata is just, he has reached another level. And we see Washijo watching on, and he does the little fist pump.
Yes!
Like, that's what comparison. That moment is to me. But Akane-Banashi, it's that moment, I'm just like, this is one of the greatest. This is going to go down as one of the great shonen arcs. I am currently actually, for a donation goal stream thing, putting together a list of my favorite arcs ever, like ranking my top 50 arcs or something. And I said, I don't know what it's going to be, but that has to be on there somewhere, because this is just this is a creator at the peak of their craft, in universe and out. It's incredible, man. It's incredible. I still think even with the anime adaptation being announced, which I can't wait for that. That's going to be amazing. But even with all the hype it's gotten, it's still slept on. People still need to be seeing this. It is just storytelling brilliance. I look forward to it just as much as I look forward to One Piece every week. It is so good. And like I said, there's lots of great narratives. What sets this apart is the way it presents it through the art, through the panel flow, through the creative choices. And then also, I think it embraces, in a meta way, Rakugo as a storytelling form. As you said, what it means to create, what it means to tell stories. And then, as well, it's so shonen. It's so shonen in every fiber of its story. And that moment with Isho is all of that in a nutshell. 100%. All of that. I can't wait to see where it goes from here, but what we've had is so much to be grateful for right now.
Indeed. Well, first and foremost, you're still working on an arc list? Favorite arcs list?
I am. It's a difficult one. It's a tough one, but I'm doing it.
Bro, when you do it, let me know, and I will have a list ready to share with yours. Whether we do, I know you're probably going to do that on the stream, but I will have a list ready as well, because I've been thinking about...
Perfect.
I've been thinking about doing one of those ever since... I think was it Fiji that brought it up to us? I'm trying to remember who it was that brought it up to us, and I've been thinking about it ever since.
I think it might have been Fiji but he actually did a stream ranking his top 50 arcs, and that's what actually gave me the idea. This could be pretty fun, because for ages I'm just like, there's no way I can do it. I can't do that. No way. But Fiji did it, and I went, you know what? Maybe I could do this. And then people in stream wanted me to do it too, so that's what gave me the push.
Oh, heck yeah, man. I'm excited to see your list, and now I've got to make my own list. that is awesome.
I'll do it in a few weeks or so.
Sweet. Yeah, well, I'll definitely try to do that then. Man, I'm excited to see your list, and I will be there for the Akane-Banashi train for sure on that one. But going back to your thoughts on the recent material, I'm right there with you on everything, man. It's been so incredibly special coming off of the time skip, because what we had at the end of the time skip, and her state of mind going into that time skip, I was so curious, especially because, like you said, this is a shonen battle manga at heart. I wanted to see how they would execute this time skip, and this arc we're in right now is sort of like when Luffy post time skip first used like Red Hawk and was flexing on Hody Jones, or like when Naruto used like the Odama Rasengan, the Great Rasengan post time skip. We're like, oh my god, like this is what they're capable of now. This is what this arc is, but for Akane, where it's like we're seeing all of this training, all of this time that she's put in, learning stuff in a new language. A different way of approaching stories, taking all of the things that she learned in the pre and applying it in ways we can't even imagine, to the point to where she's so locked in at certain points, she almost doesn't feel like herself. And it's so cool, because like you said, she snaps back in and she's back to who she always was. And it reminds me of what Kobe used to say all the time, God rest his soul, about playing on the basketball court, and how he would have a switch that went off whenever he would go out and play basketball, and he was a completely different person off the court than he was on the court. And it reminded me so much of that whenever I saw this whole full stick conversation at Akane-Banashi, because that's how it is. That truly is how it is. And so going from that first initial period where Akane was showing what she was capable of in front of an audience that didn't speak her language, I was like, man, how is it going to be whenever we get back to Japan and she's able to perform in front of an audience that understands the same language that she speaks? And as somebody who advocates for the universal language, that whole idea is super cool anyway. Being able to communicate with others beyond even if you don't come from the same culture, even speak the same language. That's what made that first part so appealing. But coming back home and no longer having that restriction lifted, I was wondering how that would go. But classic Akane-Banashi comes in and adds another restriction that she can't make anyone laugh. And at first I was like, I don't know how something like that is even possible, especially in Rakugo. I kept thinking back, like you said, to the story back in the great Rakugo anime, the chilling Shinigami story. And I was like, oh, maybe we might get something like that. Dude, what we got out of it, and like you said, the way that the story, rather than utilizing her, putting her style at the forefront of all of it, it's the story that's the main attraction of it, and she's disappeared. And you can't even see her on stage anymore because the character or the audience is so immersed with her. And I love how that's presented. When Akane is on screen, it blurs out, and then you become the audience as it shows the characters, and there's sort of squiggly lines at first, and then it forms the more it goes on before it becomes its own world. And you're no longer within the world of the manga. Now you're in this new world that she created, and how all that stuff is presented through a visual sense is unbelievable, man. And so I really love this series for how it's been able to tackle the creative process, the art of performance, as well as the intricacies of telling stories and how everybody tells stories in their own ways, and has different things that they have in mind when they do tell those stories, different things that they want to accomplish, different things that they're trying to get across to the audience, different ways they're trying to connect to the audience. And we see that here with the rivals within our main cast. But one of the things that really stood out to me in this particular stretch was just seeing how an up and coming master, like comparing Akane to how she was at the beginning of the series, even back to like that the original Isho acknowledgement of her back in chapter 25 to now. It's like, man, dude, you know, the how not only how far she's come, like that Luffy bounty poster moment, but it's also for us as the audience, like, yo, if you stick to your craft and you work hard enough at it, you may be able to reach this as well. It's really, really inspirational because we've seen the journey that she's been on, and I really love this series for that. It's a treat each and every single week. And I love it, like you said, for both its battle shonen elements, but also for those creative elements that really make me think and make me want to continue to hone my craft as well. So it's a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful story, and I love it with every fiber of my being. But to come in here with our final topic of the day, we're going to be talking about as every time I get the notifications from you, AJ, by the way, I love them. The future top 1 arc in One Piece, ladies and gentlemen. This is a factual statement.
Oh my God.
For the Elbaf awesome sauce, man. This arc has been so special. You and I have talked about our love for Skypiea, and Elbaf is taking those elements that made Skypiea so special, while also bringing in elements that made like Egghead and Wano special with the flashback that ties in so many thematic elements that make the stuff in the present so meaningful. It's an arc that is not only special for what it's doing in the background for the grand scheme of the narrative, but on a page-to-page basis, it's so immersive, so exciting. It makes me not only want to talk about it, but want to continue finding out what's going to happen next and what could happen beyond that. Some of my favorite characters in the series have already been presented within this arc, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience so far. So talk to me about your experience with Elbaf so far, your thoughts on the current content, as well as on my boy Rox, man. That's my guy, bro. And I know how much both of us love Emu, so definitely talk to me about the Emu greatness as well.
Future top 1 arc, man, it's coming.
That's right.
I genuinely, I say that tongue in cheek, and I have been saying that tongue in cheek almost since the very beginning. But the more we get, the more it seems like it could be coming to fruition. I think it could happen. You know what you said about Xenoblade 3 and how it's a marriage, and kind of Steel Ball Run as well, of so many elements that have been like the legacy of so many elements of the series up to that point, and it just really allows them to reach their apex and merges them together and gives its own new spin on them that's familiar yet fresh. I feel that way about Elbaf as an arc, because like you said, there are huge Skypiea parallels. I don't think we've talked about this before. It's no coincidence that that big, already iconic spread of Elbaf literally looks like Skypiea. Like the treetops look like clouds of Skypiea. That's no coincidence. It's very nostalgic in the very comparatively low-key beginnings. It really hangs its hat on legacy and payoff for these characters. When we get Robin and Saul, when we get Usopp and Luffy taking in that they finally reached this place, in that way, it's really beautiful. But then, my God, it introduces immediately for me the strongest arc-specific cast. I'm pretty sure it's just gonna. It already is the strongest arc-specific cast for me.
Agreed.
Gunko has so much. That we know already. There's so much substance to her character, and there are still so many mysteries that are there to uncover. Where's her arc going? Is she gonna reach an ascent, or is she gonna be saved? Because she's been imprisoned for a long time, as we see in the flashback. The parallels with her and other characters throughout the series, Gunko's phenomenal. Shamrock, I admittedly am theorizing like mad about Shamrock, so some of my hype for him may be verging into headcanon. I don't know, we'll see. But I think there's genuinely potential for an incredible sibling dynamic with Shanks, one full of flawed envy, like envy, jealousy, a reluctant admiration about the differences between the two and the way they view the world and how they are free, their freedom or lack thereof, all that sort of thing. I think there's so much there. Shamrock, unbelievable. Summers is just just this joy to have on screen for how heinous and just unabashedly evil he is and awful he is. At any given moment, he is just the worst, and at the same time, he's so entertaining, while not being too simple or caricaturish. There's a lot of substance there too. There's the mural. I'm not going to go through literally everything, but this, mural piece. My God, can you believe we had that? All this in one arc. Yeah, I can't believe how much has been in this arc. This arc is unbelievable. But then we get to the flashback we've been waiting for forever. Loki, I didn't even mention Loki. Oh, like the potential of Loki is incredible. Yeah. The cultural stuff with Harold as well. Then we get to this flashback that we've been waiting for forever, and we're introduced to this character that we've been waiting for forever. Rox, within a few chapters, is so unbelievably executed that immediately he entered my top 20, 25 or so One Piece characters just through the immense richness into the tiniest little details. Like 3 or 4 chapters of him, and I was already saying he was top 20. He's incredible. He's everything that a pirate is. I think he is the most accurate representation of and personification of piracy in the series, because he's both the positives and the embracing of freedom and the embracing of dreams, while also being Oda also doesn't shy away from the darker elements and the rougher elements and the bad things that he does. And so I think he's just this magnificent representation of piracy and legacy and the connection to Davy Jones, which was a huge bombshell.
Goodness.
The joy boy elements in him being Blackbeard's father, which God, I'm basing a whole I'm writing a whole video on that alone. Yeah. There is so much there. And then we get more details of one of my favorite characters in the story, Kaido. We get more Lin stuff, the origins of Shanks and Shamrocks, the dragon stuff we've been waiting for forever. I can't believe just saying it out loud. Like, and I missed a bunch of stuff too. Great Rayleigh Shockey stuff.
So
The stuff that's been in this flashback has been so unreal. Um, and but I do want to bring it back to this character we both love, Emu, because the more we learn about Rox, the more I think it makes it clear how much of an antithesis um he is to Emu, and just that makes it more and more clear why Emu is the magnificent antithesis that they are. Where something that really stuck with me was in one of the first chapters we get introduced to Rox. He basically says that nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. And he knows that life is ephemeral. There's nothing. It is the way of the world for there to be cycles, which in and of itself is one of the main theses of One Piece. That's what Shanks is all about. That's what this new era is all about. That Roger brought forth. That Luffy represents. Right. Rox knows that, and he straight up says it. And Emu, out of fear, out of basically that's what it comes down to, is fear. A lack of being able to confront the things that you're afraid of, a lack of being able to cede control, and a need to be on top forever, which is fundamentally unnatural. A need to embrace stagnancy and oppress truth. That is just thrown into sharp relief because Rox is the opposite of all of that. He realizes that in this world, nothing is ever permanent, and he wanted to be the king of the world, but he was never under any illusions that meant that he'd be there forever. He just wanted to live his life as best as he could for as long as he could, but knowing that, there's something beyond me that feels like there's a chain of fate pulling on this world, and, maybe my time is up, but in my time, I will do what I feel is right. And ultimately, the conclusion he came to was his family. He wants to do everything for his family. Just everything about Rox fundamentally is so tied to what piracy is in One Piece, what the main themes of One Piece are, while showing both the positives and negatives of piracy, lots of which you can see within Luffy in the present day and within Blackbeard in negative ways in the present day. And then that just throws Emu into sharper relief. I think personally, I don't know what you think, but the more we see of Emu, the more Emu lets loose and, possesses Gunko and oppresses in a more direct way rather than sitting on a throne while you destroy an island. The more I feel, even though a lot of this is in the past, the more we get to know, I think, the fact that Emu really is, as much as they have this powerful aura and this control and this authority and superiority, it's so forced. A lot of it's forced. A lot of it is based off of insecurity, and they are fundamentally, I think, a child, trapped in their mind, trying to avoid the fact that we all have to confront as we grow up, and that is that sometimes we have to face our fears. Sometimes we have to move past trauma and sadness and grief, and these are all non-specific. We don't know exactly what Emu experienced, but we know they went through the sort of thing that we all have to go through. And I don't doubt that it was horrific, but they went about it the complete opposite way than what is natural, and as a result, then imposed that unnatural stagnancy on the world. And that the more we get from this flashback, the more I think that becomes clear. And the more it makes me confident that this final saga is going to be beyond our wildest dreams for Blackbeard, for the rest of what we have with Rox, for Emu, for Luffy, and how all that's going to come together. The final boss, quote unquote, Shanks, like all these elements just get better and better the more we get from this flashback. And, I don't mind. However long Oda wants to go on with this, I'm happy, whether it's 3 chapters or we have it for the rest of the year, who knows. Because right now it's fantastic, and at the end of it all, we get to return to an unbelievably beautiful narrative situation as well, with tons of revelations to come. Like, it's just an embarrassment of riches for us right now.
100%. Man, dude, hearing you talk reminded me just how amazing everything that's happening right now truly is. Like, the fact that we're experiencing this right now, I've said it weeks on end, it feels like fan fiction at times. Like, I can't believe so much of this stuff is actually taking place, and going back to Elbaf, the chapters before the flashback, there are two chapters that sort of capture, outside of the mural, obviously. There is two chapters that sort of capture why I love this arc as much as I do, because of the types of things that it's willing to do. The first one that comes to mind was that nightmare chapter, the chapter that ends with all of the kids' nightmares coming into fruition, and they start terrorizing everything. And we have that beautiful panel in the background that shows, all of the kids' nightmares. They're running rampant. And then you have that bottom part of the page where I believe it was Summers that asked Gunko, what is it that you fear? And she says Nika. And that sort of captures what you were just talking about with Emu and the childlike way that Emu is to me. On so much of this stuff, whether it be Elbaf, the world's fear of the giants of Elbaf that was created due to individuals like Harold, pre-Harold changing, the savages that they thought they were, the fear of wanting of being associated with them is what's caused so much of the world from being attached to Elbaf, and from Harold's dream coming into fruition to this very day.
Yeah.
The fear from 800 years ago is what caused the mural to be created. The fear from passed down through the generations is what's allowed half of the giants to fear Nika and the others to see him as the savior. So much of it is based on fear, and it's the same way for those on the side of the Gorosei, where and of the celestial dragons and of the holy knights, where many of these individuals, even though they fear Emu, it's sort of a different kind. Like you said, it's a fabricated type of fear, where Emu, in everything that Emu does, whether it's the way that Emu speaks with like the thou shouts, and speaking like straight from ancient types of writing, biblical writing, some would say, Shakespearean writing, in that type of tone, the way that a god should speak, a god should act. You have to obey me, because if you don't, this is going to happen. So many obvious things inspired by gods in either mythology or religion, but I think it's what's more fascinating about the inspiration, or more than the inspiration, is the way that Emu has been executed, which is an individual who's clearly trying to be someone that they're not. And that, to me, that mask is what I can't wait to crack when we get to the Void Century, and just like you were just talking about. It's really, really exciting, and I think it has a connection to, like with Gunko, the fear that Emu carries. Something that we saw a hint of it, back in Egghead when Joy Boy's Hockey came up from the knot, and he was on his knees. Emu was like, "Yo, Joy Boy," and it was like this quivering fear. It was, something brings you to your knees. It's something really, whether it is, because I was bringing up to the people in that chapter reaction, outside of just strength, this is a trauma that is presenting itself again after 800 years. Like, oh, I thought I got rid of you. This world that I've created after getting rid of you, and now you've come back to haunt me? It's like, that type of stuff makes me so excited to continue to explore Emu's character, and more so here with the Elbaf stuff. And that's on the Emu and the Holy Knights side of things, and Gunko and all those wonderful, wonderful characters. On the side of the pirates, I feel like the chapter that exemplifies what I believe Oda's main message is on that side, and I think it's going to be showcased most through Usopp, is the Ranya chapter. Ranya, I believe the correct way of saying is Ranya. That is one of my favorite chapters in all of Elbaf so far. That's the chapter where when Ranya was presented with a situation, whether she had the individuals on the parents of Elbaf, the Elder Jarl, was presented with either you save Ranya's life or we're burning down your history, your culture, the things that you hold dear. And the Elder Jarl had a really difficult decision. And what was Ranya doing on the other side? Ranya was staying firm and true. Take me out, but but I want to protect the connections, the experiences, the people that I've met so far. And she's only a kid. So she carries that warrior spirit, that warrior mentality, even though she doesn't have the brawn or the brains. I'm sorry, she definitely has the brains. Not the brawn or the strength of Dorian Broggy or Harold or Loki or any of these, but she has the warrior heart. And what I love so much about that moment is, up until that Ranya scene, one of the main central focuses of Elbaf has been the difference in generations, right? The old generation that believes themselves to be, the true warriors, the individuals who carried that spirit both in brawn and with their actions. And this new generation sort of soft, or at least they are in their eyes, where they aren't as strong. They don't have this desire to conquer. They don't have this desire to want to do what the other giants did, but they do want to connect, and they carry on Harold's will in that way. But when you have Ranya's sort of the glue and a representation that the warrior mentality and spirit of the old generation and of those beyond them, those of the Void Century times, maybe even those of the Old World times, still continue on through Ranya. A little girl who can't even throw a punch, but she has the warrior mentality and spirit. And what I love so much about that is I think we're going to see that again, but through Usopp. Because I strongly do believe Usopp's moment is due in regards to him, especially with Dorian Broggy having been turned. I personally do think that the way that they somehow, because we still don't know like the ins and outs of Domi Reversi, but however it is that stuff happens, I think it's going to have a connection to Usopp, where Usopp in a moment similar to how Ranya was tested there, Usopp's going to have a moment where he is also going to be, whether it be at death's door or in a moment in front of Dorian Broggy or whoever it is, and the warrior mentality and spirit's going to be tested. And if we already saw it once with Ranya, and it was one of my favorite moments in the arc that sort of it represents what makes the warrior mentality so special and so beautiful, is that it's not about what's on the outside, it's what about what's on the inside. Wait until we get that from Usopp, man. And I think it's coming. I don't know who it's against. I don't know if it's against Emu or the Holy Knights or, like I said, Dorian Broggy, whoever it is. But when that does happen, it is going to be so peak. And it's that type of stuff that I've loved so much about Elbaf. It's how certain thematic elements are so consistent. And now that we have the flashback and we see how some of this stuff is already starting to tie into the present, not only in the grand scheme of the narrative, but also thematically as well. And it's just been so good. I can call back to multiple different chapters and why it is that they sort of capture why it is that I love not just this arc, but this series. And it all stems back to this sort of mastery that Oda has right now in both Egghead and in this arc, where the final saga based on Egghead and Elbaf is going to be Oda flexing the skills that he's attained so far for short-term and long-term storytelling and balancing those two. It's what One Piece is based on. But we see just how much he's been doing that in both Egghead and Elbaf, which is why if we do get an around the world section, the same way we did in Egghead, especially with where we ended off, before we went into the Loki flashback, where we heard that there is craziness happening in the Holy Land. If we have an around the world section, just like in Egghead and just like in Elbaf with the flashback in the present time, it's gonna tie back in together, thematically, and with all of the narrative knots that are currently trying to get tied together at the moment. There is some stuff that has been presented in this flashback that have me just, I'm frothing. I can't wait to get back to the present, because if we ever in 2026 at the end of this year go back to the present time and we see what's actually going on in the Holy Land, or the stuff that's happening around the world right now, even outside of Elbaf, because when we get to Elbaf again in the present time, like you said, it's going to be peak. But the stuff potentially happened, especially post now that Rox has been confirmed to be Blackbeard's father, and the potential, like him in chapter 1155 saying, "I'll be back for you one day." You know what I'm saying?
Good.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So immediately all of us are like, "Oh, that means Blackbeard's gonna pull up on him." And with every chapter that's happened in God Valley, and the focus that we've gotten on, the Davy stuff and Blackbeard and his mom, it's like the more I really, really want to see what's happening in the Marijoa right now. And so I want to ask you, what do you think's happening in the Marijoa right now? Because we know it's on fire. I don't know if it's a metaphorical fire or if it's a literal fire, but Shamrock was called back to the Holy Land in the present time because the Holy Land is on fire and he needs to come back. So what do you think's happening? Is it a metaphorical thing where the individuals, the Celestial Dragons, are like starving, so there's chaos in the Holy Land, and because of the food shortage, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and they call back Shamrock in order to take care of the situation there? Or do you think Blackbeard or Dragon or Shanks or any of them are pulling up right now while all this is happening? Now, keep in mind, all three of the individuals I just said not only had connections and ties to that stuff before the flashback, but now after the flashback, they all have ties to each other and the individuals in the Holy Land. So it's like all of them are plausible, all of them can happen, and that's why I want to know, what do you think is happening in the Holy Land right now, AJ?
So, just really quickly, I love that you mentioned Rania, because I totally agree that's one of the most important, but it's kind of slept on and forgotten, understandably, with how much has happened. Elements of Elbaf, and also a really great way to key you into, again, the difference between cultures and a difference between eras, because this identity crisis that Elbaf has led to a situation where, yes, she's this wonderful example of the genuine warrior spirit of Elbaf tempered with the kindness that, like, the perfect balance. But this stagnancy has also led to a situation where she has to believe that she must give up her life, this little child, for the sake of the future. So that in and of itself shows the flaws, which is just generally a great moment. But sorry, so with your question, I think I don't mean to be to be a fence sitter or anything, or to play it safe, but I think that all three of them have very valid narrative reasons to be a part of a genuine attack on Marijoa. Like, with Shanks, the narrative reason for that, I think, is that could be a great segue into really digging into the dynamics between him and Shamrock, and that could be a great way to explore why they're different, why they're foils of one another, maybe more specifics between and nuances that contrast how they each grew up. It would make sense for, I think, Shank's general plan going forward. I just think for a lot of reasons, it makes sense that Shanks could be a part of that. though he's probably the one out of the three I'm least confident in being a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is Dragon, where he is a huge part of the current flashback. We're finally understanding more of what's been hiding behind that furrowed brow, and that expression, and what he's really thinking, and really cool, I think, inverse dynamic with him and Garp, and how he was radicalized and how he became the person he became. And I think it's just generally really clean, efficient, potent writing to show finally what we've been begging for forever. This is how he became this way. This is how he became this way. This is why he is the man he is now. Into him making the biggest moves he's made all story. He's been being very tactical. He's been biding his time. So to go from this flashback to show us why he is the man he is into showing him taking action, it's just like, it's very thrilling. It makes sense. It's great narrative flow. I think it's just very logical to assume, or to think that it's very possible that that could be the case. But then Blackbeard to me is the one I'm most confident in.
Me too.
Him being a part of it, because he is getting the most indirect stuff. All we're seeing from him right now is him as a scared little child, and that's incredibly impactful, obviously, but we're not really getting characterization directly from him. What we're instead getting is through his father, through his mother, through Emu, through contrasting it with the present day, through contrasting the way he goes about his life now with his father, and like, what is the relationship there? How can you reconcile that? Is he actually, how do you merge that with the fact that he doesn't dream? How representative is he of what his father stood for? All these ideas are bubbling in your mind. The more you learn about Rox, the more you think about and theorize about Blackbeard. And I don't know about you, but at this moment, I am the most invested in his character I've ever been, I
Me
think.
too. Me too.
And I feel, and I don't think that's an uncommon opinion. I think this stuff has made people more invested in him than ever before. And so it just makes sense to me that, considering that, Oda would build him up in this way indirectly to then show us this incredible impact from him in the present day, doing the sort of thing, potentially, if he is behind this, if he's playing a part, that would be so representative of his father, after acting in a lot of ways that are not necessarily representative of him. I think we'll see a lot of answers. I have so many questions about Blackbeard and his relationship with Rox thematically and what he's doing and his role in all this now that's been kind of tossed up in the air. So I think we're going to get, it's like a call and response. It's like, okay, wonder all these things about him, recontextualize him, now let's see what he's doing to then reconcile that. I just think it feels like a natural progression for the story, whether it be, immediately after the flashback, whether we have to wait a bit. We're going to see it. And I think that when we do, it's going to, I would bet on there being a big Blackbeard connection there. For all those reasons and more. Like, there's also logistical reasons as to why he'd be there too. Hints from some dialogue with his crew, taking on the world. It just a lot of it adds up to me. So yeah, that, I think all of them are likely, but in terms of likelihood, I'd say in order, descending order, Blackbeard, Dragon, Shanks.
I love it. I made a video a few weeks ago now, talking about this very topic, and it's the same exact thing for me, where I was like, yeah, it's got. I think it's Blackbeard as the most likely, Dragon right behind, and Shanks, and then I finished it off by saying, but I think all three are gonna happen, and this is why. Now, if it doesn't happen, obviously I'm not gonna destroy Oda. This is just a theory or something I would like to see. But based on what the manga's told us so far, where Blackbeard goes, he always, especially throughout the time skip, he always has a connection to two characters, and that's or two factions. And that's your red-haired pirates and the Revolutionary Army. When Blackbeard first popped up again, we saw the Revolutionary Army there as well, back in Dressrosa. Then once again, post Dressrosa before Zoe, whenever with the attack on Baltigo, that was Blackbeard pirates and the Revolutionary Army. Then, of course, obviously, during the chapter 925 in Blackbeard's reintroduction post time skip, what was he looking at? He was reacting to the news from the Reverie with Sabo and the Revolutionary Army. In chapter 956 and 957, Sabo gets the news just going around the world that Sabo did something. Who's laughing about it and now decides it's now time to move on to get something. It's Blackbeard because of that. And everywhere that Blackbeard is gone, the red-haired pirates have fallen after. Shanks is on full pursuit of wherever Blackbeard goes. That's where I'm going, which is why I think it most certainly is Blackbeard. I think Blackbeard is the one causing the chaos, but because the manga has told us, Dragon specifically stated back in Egghead, he is going to wait for the Gods Knights to move before he makes his move. And so now that they've made their move, the Revs are also going to make their move. So with all this chaos happening, created by Blackbeard, the Holy Knights haven't made their move, Dragon following suit right behind, and then Shanks going after Blackbeard, but also having that desire to want to have that moment with his family, that closure with his family. And so now that we know what Dragon was trying to do for both Shamrock and Shanks, what he was asked to do, by the mother, that connection between those two characters is there, and I wonder what type of thing would be there. But I most certainly think it's going to end up being a situation where we now have a sort of a reason for Dragon, and let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Garling being like the former, I believe, I'm trying to remember what the title was in chapter 1086 when he was first introduced. I think it was like Supreme Commander of the Holy Knights, whatever it was. Him being in that position, I'm going to assume he would be the one to have either a confrontation, a clash, or a fight with Dragon. And then simultaneously, and at the same time as that, Shanks and Shamrock, like you just talked about, because I most certainly think that has to happen. But while those two things are happening, and Emu's body is back here, while Emu has taken over Gunko, that opens up the opportunity for us to get Blackbeard coming in onto the throne, just like his father did, and having a moment with Emu before all this starts going into true chaos. And I wonder, that's what happens there is what I'm most excited to see, because that could send the entire rest of the final saga into chaos. Whatever ends up happening there. Because we've gotten so much Blackbeard and Emu content lately, it feels like Oda's like hanging these two strings in the air, being like, one of these is going to be the final antagonist. You just don't know which one. But I do. Yeah. I know which one. And so inevitably, I do think that just like in all of the other classic battle shonen stories, the two who we believe to be are to be the final antagonists will have their showdown and or their confrontation. And so what I wonder is, what I assume is, Emu's going to be dealing with both Blackbeard and his onslaught, and then while at the same time having taken over Gunko and having to deal with an incoming Loki and Luffy and Zoro and them. So how all of that stuff ties together is what I'm so excited to see heading back into their present time, especially if all three parties are involved, or even if just one party's involved. But we know coming off of Elbaf, we don't have much left. So it feels like now is really the time for this stuff to start popping off, even now or post after this arc. So I'm really excited for when we get back to the present time for that reason, but I'm loving this flashback so much. Oda could take his time, because God Valley has not only been a treat, but even before we got to God Valley with the Loki stuff, I can't wait to get back to the Loki and Herald stuff, like that. The reason why we started this flashback in the first place. So I'm right there with you. Rox is also a top 20 character for me. I love that character so much. So many of the elements of the flashback have just spoken to me and what exactly I want from this series. It's been fan service heaven, but in the best way possible. And so I can't wait for what Oda's got cooking for the rest of the year. But I'm even more excited for when we get back to the present, because Elbaf's climax has the potential to be the most insane one so far. And the ripple effect from that climax is what's going to send us into the rest of the final saga. Like, there's just
Yep.
no ifs or buts, because whatever happens with the Holy Knights, whatever happens with Emu, whatever happens here on Elbaf, it is going to, if Egghead kickstarted us into full gear heading into the rest of the final saga, this is going to be that ignition that starts the chaos. That's going to be the finale of this series, and so I am extremely excited for it. I just ask any final predictions and or things that you would like to see heading either to the end of of this flashback, coming in maybe by the end of this year, maybe the beginning of next year, as well as the present time stuff. Is there anything that you're looking forward to seeing, whether from a character standpoint, a narrative standpoint, or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Well, also one thing that I really like is that I totally agree with what you say about this arc. That Elbaf it's going to be formative for the rest of the series. It's going to be this is I think it's a powder keg. I think this is something that's going to have ramifications for the rest of the final saga, however long it'll be. I still think it'll be many years to come, and I think this is going to form it. This is going to mold what it's going to be like. And I think it's very appropriate that we are seeing the God Valley flashback within it, because God Valley pretty much did that for the whole series. That was the inciting point for so much of the whole series. So there's a cool symmetry there. But in terms of a couple of things I'm looking forward to or would like, I just love the idea, you touched on it earlier, of nightmares being addressed, the deepest fears, our deepest insecurities coming to life. And I think that idea is just ripe for internalization for the Straw Hats or any number of the characters here, but the Straw Hats are the first ones you think of. So I think it's just pretty ripe for being able to explore the fears within our crew in one way or another. Not necessarily all of them, but maybe a couple. I think it could be fascinating to do it for Zoro, who I think has been really simmering lately. There's lots of cool subtextual things with him. Usopp, of course. I think there's a lot that can be explored there with the idea of nightmares. So that could potentially be really cool. And I would hope that it gets tackled to an extent, because there's just so much potential there. And that jumps into, you mentioned Usopp. I love that you mentioned Usopp, and I also love that you said everything in its own time, because that's really the case with Usopp. We are getting so much more than we could have ever imagined in this arc when it first started. I could not have imagined we'd get half in my wildest dreams of what we've gotten. It hasn't even been 40 chapters. I can't believe that.
Yeah,
but it's crazy. It's crazy. So, but naturally, that sort of thing takes time. Even though it's been less than 40 chapters and that kind of feels crazy, it still requires a bit of time. There's some setup chapters, there's some transition chapters, and this stuff takes time to properly explore. And I see a lot of people, like when I say on stream or say in a video or say on social media that I'm loving Elbaf, it's going to be so good, it's going to continue to be great, it's going to be this iconic legendary arc. One of the most common things I see is, yeah, but they gotta explore Usopp. You gotta explore Usopp, and I'm getting kind of worried. And it's like, I think there's a tendency to want immediacy for a lot of things and to want everything right now. And that just isn't what this series is about. I think we've been spoiled with how much we've gotten so quickly, relatively, in Elbaf, and going back to Egghead. But that's like, One Piece is the quintessential everything in its own time series. sometimes it's painful because there are so many threads that you want to grasp onto and you want to learn about that aren't being explored. But, did anyone really... I swear, I've seen so many things about Dragon's character that he's never going to actually be fleshed out. He's just going to be looking east all the time. And I do think that Dragon, his character hasn't been done perfectly. I think there's been some flaws there. Never once did I doubt that he'd get stuff. It's so clear that it's being telegraphed for that, just because of how Oda writes the story. And now we've got it, and we'll continue to get it. And so with Usopp, so much of his arc, which I think has been the most extensive character development in the crew, has been directed towards so much of what we see on Elbaf, what it represents for him. Oda's even called to that with the big spread of it, and then him and Luffy reacting to it.
Yeah,
I find it very doubtful that we've come here in this arc that perfectly represents so much of Usopp's journey and is so full of despair that he is so well equipped to fight against in one way or another, and that he's just going to do nothing. I just that's not the way Oda writes, I don't think. I think Oda very much telegraphs when things will happen and follows through very often. I don't have any fear of that right now. Could it be a problem if that potential isn't fulfilled? Yeah, it very well could be, but that's the case with any given story. And my question to anyone who's nervous about that or thinking like, we haven't gotten Usopp stuff, it's like, when do you want that to happen? Do you want them to stop the Elbaf flashback? Or sorry, the God Valley flashback to give some Usopp internalization? Like, when do you want to... Speaking of which, Brook has gotten some crazy cool stuff with Gunko, right? And what he represents and his songs and all that. But like, every chapter's been so dense and so deliberate and so purposeful that I just straight up... the way I'm viewing this is I can totally see this as being everything's very deliberate and Usopp will get his due, but it just hasn't been explored yet for very obvious reasons. All this stuff needs to happen when it happens. And so I get the urgency for this and the desire for this because Usopp's one of my favorite characters and this is something I've been waiting for since literally Syrup Village. But I don't think there's any reason to be nervous or anxious or dooming because we haven't had Usopp stuff yet. I think there's plenty more to go in this arc. I think there's plenty more opportunities for him to get that stuff. And I think he will. And if he doesn't, then okay, yeah, you can feel right. Critical, and you can be sad about it. Maybe I'll be sad about it if he doesn't.
I'll be sad about it.
I'm very confident. Yeah, right. I probably will, but I'm very confident that he will, just because it just feels like a no-brainer. So that's my thing. Like, I really want certain things, but I also think it's important to, at the same time, keep in mind that everything in its own time. There's no rush. It'll come when it comes, and especially when it comes to Usopp. I think it's all set up for him, and I really don't think that... I honestly think it would have been maybe making things a bit too bloated if we started approaching him before this, Right. So, yeah, those are some of my thoughts, I guess, to close.
Man, dude, what a time. What a time to be a fan of this wonderful story where this, just like you said, we've been spoiled, bro. With how much stuff we've gotten so fast, man. Because like you said, Egghead felt that way too. But this arc, every chapter feels like there's something to bite on, or we could be eating it for weeks with how much material's there, and it's just been a blast, man. It's been a wonderful weekly experience, and an awesome just overall package of the story that I also can't believe has been less than 40 chapters. It's actually nuts, man. And so I can't wait for the rest of what Oda has in store for the God Valley flashback, as well as for the present day stuff, man. But that is going to be it for us here today. AJ, man, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for the openness and the honesty throughout the course of this entire podcasts in regards to multiple different elements. I really, really do appreciate anytime we're able to get together like this. But I was super excited for this one because of the connection that you and I have to some of these series, as well as to something like a Xenoblade that you inspired me to get into. So I truly, truly do appreciate you. Let the good people know what your current schedule is, if they should play Alan Wake, and and if and where they can find you.
Of course, thank you so much for having me too. I thoroughly enjoyed, as always. My pleasure. Alan Wake's great so far. I think I think the first game was really cool. And also approached a lot of themes that you and I really enjoy about stories. So anyone and has a great atmosphere, great setting. So anyone into that sort of thing, worth trying for sure. And I'm just super excited for Alan Wake 2, which I'll be doing down the line, maybe the next game after I finish, because I'm starting Red Dead Redemption 2 soon. So that's
Nice.
on the schedule. So in terms of my schedule, we have One Piece every Sunday, but every break week, so where there isn't One Piece, we do Kagurabachi. So we've always got something really hype on Sundays.
Nice.
I've been loving Kagurabachi as well, exploring that series and its artistic evolution and the topics it covers has been amazing.
Great.
So Monday is always a gaming day. Some Tuesdays as well, but that tends to be a bonus. And the next game we're going to be starting is Red Dead Redemption 2, so that'll probably be a while. After that, I imagine it'll be Alan Wake, but nothing's set in stone. So Red Dead Redemption 2 on Mondays. On Wednesdays, I'm currently going through Tokyo Ghoul, which is super hype. I've been really enjoying it, and especially also in considering your journey with Shojin X. I can't wait to check that out one day too. But yeah, maybe by the time this comes out, I'll be almost done. The first part of Tokyo Ghoul. Then in between Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re, I'm taking a break to check out Dragon Ball on Wednesdays.
Oh, don't tell me that, bro.
Yeah, so
let's go.
So Red Dead Redemption 2 on Mondays, Tokyo Ghoul read through. We're gonna be pausing in a few weeks for Dragon Ball, and then returning to Tokyo Ghoul Re after that. Probably. And then and then Sundays are One Piece and Kagurabachi. I do also stream on Fridays. Sometimes I do some Naruto stuff, sometimes extra One Piece stuff. Been quite busy lately, so I haven't done it as much lately, but Togashi is cooking, and whenever those chapters start releasing, whenever that batch releases, there'll be something to do on Friday, whether I actually read Hunter x Hunter on Friday or maybe shift Kagurabachi to Friday. That'll take up another day. So that's what the immediate future's looking like, and all of it super exciting.
Man, dude, what a schedule. Dude, I didn't even get a chance to ask you about a metaphor. Hopefully next time we get together, we can talk about that.
Yeah, that'll always be there, yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for that. That was definitely something I couldn't wait to talk to you about, considering, like you were just talking about Alan Wake. Metaphor is a very similar game. Talking about the stories and reality and how those often can interweave with each other. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been it for us today. Please go follow AJ on literally anything. It'll always be a good time. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it be Twitch, YouTube, over on Twitter, and or especially over on his Patreon. So definitely go check out my boy. We will hope to be back sooner than this time, and that was all because of me and
Definitely.
Xenoblade. It's Xenoblade's fault. It's not my fault. But regardless of that, definitely excited for the next time we're able to get together, and I'm looking forward to seeing how all of you guys have to feel about our conversation today. So please let us know your comment section down, your comments about this week's installment in the comment section down below. And if United won, please give me a massive W in the chat. That's what I'm hoping for by the time this goes live. So I will see y'all next time. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and take care, man. And like we said during the Xenoblade segment of this podcast, appreciate your life, man. Truly appreciate the minutia of everyday life, even if it is hard right now. Things will get better. That's truly what I believe. Have a nice day, y'all.